either the military or a dictator
and what do we discern from that? What do we conclude from that? Gen Z are all morons?
Well, Gen Z, I don't think have ever lived and seen the results
of a lack of democracy.
Exactly.
Absolutely,
that's what's happened.
So that sounds a fascinating show. It's called Nightlife, by the way. Do give Petrie a ring, 03444991000. She'll take you through until 1 a.m. You have been an amazing audience, and I have been a mediocre presenter, and we're going to do it all again tomorrow. So be there, same time, same place, here.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you on this Monday evening. It's still January, can you believe it? It's the longest month in the world, isn't it? Anyway, coming up on this programme at midnight, which of course is the full hour of phone-in, and I don't know if you completely appreciate that this is the only programme that does that, complete hour, enabling you to have your say, for you to be able to talk back. Now, you call us, we call you back, and it's as simple as that, and then we put you on air and we are able to have a conversation. Literally every other programme is busy with guests and all that sort of thing, so they fit in a few calls here and there. This is an entire hour dedicated to hearing your voices. So I hope you take advantage of that. What I want to talk with you about at midnight is the future of democracy. And democracy is something I think that we all take for granted. We all think, well, because we've always had democracy, we'll always have democracy. I mean, just look at what's going on in America at the moment. Many people, there are millions of people in the United States are concerned now that it's turning into an autocracy, that it is turning into something that is not the pure definition of democracy, or at least it will become that. So it's interesting to me, the whole idea of democracy, especially on the day that we look back at one of the most heinous periods in human history, and we are commemorating the 80th anniversary since the liberation of the Auschwitz death camp on Holocaust Memorial Day. And it pulls into sharp focus what can happen if we let democracy slide. Because you don't always get a benign dictator. In fact, I don't know of any benign dictators in the world. And when you look at what Hitler did, and what is happening around the world, it's actually, the parallels are unavoidable. You can't avoid. If you look at what's happening with the news media, people don't trust the news media anymore, so they're getting their information from social media, which we know can be manipulated by algorithms, either by Russia or China, or indeed by your own government. When we look to see how easily it is to other people. This is what happened in Nazi Germany, when the Jews were blamed for the fact that your food was expensive and your rent was expensive, and everything cost you more money. And the answer to that, the solution to that, was to get rid of these pesky people who were costing you all the money. It's very much similar now to the rhetoric we have with immigration. You know, those immigrants, all of that stuff. You can see these unavoidable parallels. You don't even have to be cynical to see what happens, the taking over of the media, the choosing the people who are in unelected people who are then put into jobs like you see in America. So it's unavoidable to see. If you read the list of what created fascism and you go down it, it's almost like a checklist in certain countries in the world at the moment. So and the fact that we kind of sleepwalk into it. The Germans, if they were told on the first day, I love Germany, I love the German people, if they were told on the first day, look, what we're going to do is going to take all these people that are costing you, you know, a fortune in buying eggs and milk, and we're going to gas them and burn them. If that had been said on the first day, there isn't, I don't believe, a German that would have agreed to that. I just do not believe it. There was this slow sort of creeping sensation of removing democracy for your own good, taking over the judiciary for your own good. It's why I fight to not lose jury trials, that we cannot lose those basic fundamental tenets of our democracy, because they take them away for our own good, because there's a big queue of cases waiting. They take all these things away for our own good, and it turns out to be exactly the opposite. So why is it that Gen Z are now saying that they would prefer a dictator, somebody who did not have to go through the checks and balances of a democratic political system, than to vote? And why are some of those even saying that they would rather have the military run the country than democracy as it stands? Now, there are lots of problems with democracy. It's not perfect. I get that. But it's the best we've got, really. So that's what I want to talk about at midnight. Why is Gen Z deciding that a dictatorship or a militarily controlled country is better than democracy? Could it be that they haven't learnt the right stuff at school, they haven't seen the right stuff, they haven't experienced the right stuff? Maybe they're after Tony Blair even, so they never knew about the Second World War apart from in a book or whatever. Anyway, that's what I want to talk to you about, and I'd love to hear your views. Maybe you agree with them. We need a dictator like Russia. Who knows? Maybe that is the right way to go. It's up to you. You can tell me. 0344499 1000 is the number to call, and you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Coming up before that, delighted to say that Russ Kane will be here in the studio going through the newspapers and discussing this very story, and of course looking at the memorial of the liberation of Auschwitz. Then we've got Beverly Lyons, entertainment reporter. She'll be talking us through some of the entertainment stuff that's been going on, and Alex Three Lions Hines will be here to discuss the sport over the weekend. But first, Stephen Barber joins me now, Professor of Global Affairs at UEL and author of Reclaiming the Revolution. Very good to talk to you, Professor. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. It does appear that Western democracies, we're almost being talked out of them. We're almost being told that there is a better way. Do you see that, or is it just me?
Well, let's come to the survey in a moment, but I was just struck by what you were just saying, because it's a very poignant day to be having a discussion like this, and when we remember the horrors of the Holocaust, why freedom and why democracy are so important. And I guess it comes back to the point that you made there, that we take democracy as a given, but it really isn't. And in the darkest days of the Second World War, there were only 11 functioning democracies in the world. So democracy is fragile, and we do have to nurture it and look after it. In terms of that survey, though, that you were alluding to, the Gen Z preferring a dictator to the current situation, I'd be slightly sceptical of the wording of the survey there. And I mean, I wonder, had the question been asked, would you like to give up your democratic rights to an uncontrollable dictator who will make decisions on your behalf, I think we probably would have got very different answers. So before I came on, I just had a quick look at the British Social Attitude Survey, which you'll know is an annual survey, has been running for 40 odd years, very well respected. Actually, that suggests that if we look at these attitudes of all generations, on the whole, the British population is getting more socially liberal, less authoritarian. And actually, of all the generations, the youngest generations are the most liberal. And actually, almost by year of birth, the correlation is that the older you get, the more you are likely to have more authoritarian attitudes. So I think there's some mixed evidence there.
Yeah, interesting though, because I read that as well in some of the stuff I've got in front of me here, that said this generation is possibly the most liberal and the most authoritarian in history at the same time, because they believe in their own liberal rights, but potentially not others. The problem is, though, that it is very easy to see for anyone in your position and my position that voter engagement is slipping. A lot of people will say to me before an election, I'm not voting because I don't trust any of them. So our political parties have a lot to answer for, the way that they lie to us and then treat us like we're idiots. They've got, if we want to preserve democracy, politicians have got to stop behaving the way they're behaving and step up, because otherwise the amount of people who don't vote, look at America, the numbers of people who didn't bother to vote is what's happened in the US today.
Yeah, I think this does reflect a disenchantment with democratic politics, and we get that in Britain, but you see it across the world as well. You certainly see it in the United States. We're looking now at elections across Europe, in Germany, in France, and you're seeing the same sorts of attitudes. I think it's probably more nuanced than politicians need to do this or do that. However, I think we've seen a growth of populism, which has offered, on the right and the left, by the way, which has sought to offer simple solutions to complex problems. And then we've got ourselves in this sort of cakeism position where we are told that we can have all the benefits of something without any of the costs. And that's, I think, a real weakness of democracy at the moment. And it is incumbent on politicians to be straight with us and to lay out the facts. But I think there's also a responsibility on voters to take responsibility for the decisions that we're collectively making as a society. It's not just a marketplace where politicians can vie for who can offer the most sort of fantasy politics and fantasy policies.
The way that our political system works as well, people are disenfranchised by. I live in West London. There's been a Labour politician for as long as I can remember. A decent guy, actually, Andy Slaughter. I like him enormously. But I don't vote Labour. I vote if I vote Liberal. Right? But people are telling me that's a waste of a vote. Well, I will always vote with my conscience. But a lot of people go, well, I'm in a heavily Labour area or a heavily Tory area, has been for decades, blah, blah, blah. What's the point in me voting? So partly the system is also to blame, because I might as well have taken my ballot paper and shredded it up and put it in the bin for all the good that it did my democratic right to vote, although I will always take that democratic right and I will always vote with my conscience.
Well, you're right. Most people in this country, I mean, most people in most elections vote for losing candidates. So most people don't get what they want because of the way that the system works, because it's a majoritarian system. I would first of all say that has long been the case. I mean, it's always been the case in Britain. What we have, though, is a breakdown in voter ID. We don't vote along the lines that our parents would have done, for instance, or our grandparents, where class would have been the main identifier. In fact, some of that broke down quite obviously in the 2019 general election, where actually for the first time Labour voters were wealthier than Conservative voters, and remember Boris Johnson had that electoral it was a slogan. It was no more than a slogan. It wasn't a policy, but of levelling up, where traditional Labour voters in working class parts of the North and the Midlands, who would always have voted Labour, voted Conservative. So we've had that breakdown as well, and that creates a lot of the environment that you're describing.
Look, I do want to address the United States of America, because a lot of people will be watching what Trump is doing in this country and going, finally, a politician who says what he's going to do and actually does it. And I know there's a lot of support for that. I'm just reminded of the Niemöller poem, and then they came for me. But I live in fear of the erosion of democracy and how easily it can be taken away. And if you look at the rule book for fascism, at the moment Donald Trump is ticking pretty much everyone, taking over the media, controlling the media. There's shock and awe of all these hundreds of things that he's signing, so people don't even know what's going on anymore. You start to get rid of the criminals, and then some of them are not criminals, but hey, that's okay because it's only a few, and then it goes down the list. It worries me, but is America a safe democracy? Could that ever fall into an authoritarian autocracy?
I think ultimately any democracy has the capacity to unravel, to dismantle, and clearly President Trump has sought to undermine democracy and has treated democracy with contempt. He did it last time, and you can see it again now. But I think we shouldn't get too carried away. I mean, he isn't a dictator. He has been democratically elected.
He does admire dictators, though. He's always said that.
Yeah, he admires the strong men of politics, doesn't he? He admires people like Putin. But that doesn't mean that the checks and balances that exist will be swept away. He is subject to Congress. He is subject to the Constitution of the United States, which is pretty well constructed, as you'll know. He is subject to term limits. So, whatever happens now, we would expect that in 4 years' time, he will make way to another president, and that president will have been democratically elected, albeit that the United States also suffers from having a majoritarian system. So most people largely vote for losing candidates as well. And in fact, I mean, this time round, Trump did get a majority of the votes cast. But actually, last time, I think Hillary Clinton was something like 2 million votes more.
Yeah, the popular vote. Yeah.
Than the popular vote. Yeah.
I mean, so how do we persuade people to re-engage in politics and to not take for granted what we have, even though it's not ideal? How do we make people value that, particularly young people?
Yeah, I mean, I think young people, you can see, have a particular stake in society, and they have a stake because they're going to be in the society for longer than older generations. But you can see where their own generational disenchantment comes from.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a transfer of wealth from poorer younger people to wealthier older people, and we see that throughout society. Elections tend to prioritize older voters, and that's partly because
not anymore.
Well, maybe not, but I mean, older voters tend to turn out and vote, and they've been a bigger bloc. And you can see that if you're a younger voter now, you wonder where these opportunities are going to come from that were perhaps given to, if not their parents, then their grandparents. Yeah. So what do you do? I think it's a complex problem, and I think we do need to have certainly the sort of reforms that you're alluding to, perhaps more deep than that become something more deliberative, where voters are involved in the decisions of a society or an economy, and accept that some of these decisions are actually really decisions that are made in government are actually difficult decisions. They're not easy yes or no answers a lot of the time. They take a lot of resource, a lot of research, a lot of expertise, and they're not they're imperfect. There's a trade-off. If you decide to do this, you can't do that. And I think that we need to involve citizens and voters in those decisions and taking responsibility for those decisions.
And understanding that it's not instant like everything else has been, perhaps in their youth, that you and I did. Not that I'm saying how old you are, but that we didn't have. We had to go and find stuff, right? It wasn't immediately in front of us.
And electoral cycles, cycles, like any other, are short. So the politics tends to be more short term. It's why big infrastructure projects are actually quite difficult to get off the ground, because they're quite unpopular when they start, and the benefits aren't going to be felt for 10 years or more when those politicians are no longer in office. We have to get beyond that.
I just hope we just continue to fight for our democratic rights, and we don't just sleepwalk our way out of them. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you. I really, really enjoyed that. Stephen Barber there, Professor of Global Affairs at UEL and author of Reclaiming the Revolution. Quick break. Back in a sec.
across the UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, and a very good evening to you. So, most people, according to this survey, most young people are in favour of turning the UK into a dictatorship. That's according to a deeply worrying study which has revealed an acceptance of authoritarianism and radicalism amongst Generation Z. 52% of this generation, these are people aged between 13 and 27, in case you're wondering, I always need to be reminded, said they thought the UK would be a better place if a strong leader was in charge who does not have to bother with Parliament and elections. That pesky democracy every 4 years having to go and vote. I mean, such hard work. 33% suggested the UK would be better off if the army was in charge. A military junta, good. Great. 47% agreed that the entire way our society is organised must be radically changed through revolution, compared with 33% of 45 to 65-year-olds. The findings from the polling company Kraft forms part of a Channel 4 report, Gen Z Trends, Truth and Trust, which will be published at a Royal Television Society event on Thursday. They were based on a sample of 3,000 adults of all ages. Now, 3,000 is a decent survey. I always look at survey numbers. It's a decent number, right? And then, of course, it's extrapolated and whatever. But that, for me, is deeply worrying. Even if you said, oh, it's only 3,000, that more than half of that 3,000 thought we'd be better under a dictatorship is really concerning, right? There's more to this. I'll go into later. It's broken down about women and men, etc., etc. But why do you think it is that Gen Z think that? And I wonder if it's because they're young. They haven't. You know, I mean, I didn't. You probably didn't witness what happened with the Second World War, but certainly our parents. My father joined the RAF during the war. You know, we have a connection to that. We have a very real, visceral connection to the hardships of the war and of the lack of democracy, and democracy has always been, and women's votes, we had to fight really hard to get those votes. So I'm quite attached to my vote. Even if I know that it doesn't make a jot of difference, I will always exercise my rights to go and vote. I happen to think that it is, I mean, people died. I'm not just talking about the women's vote, but the millions of soldiers that died in the Second World War died for democracy. They went in to destroy fascism, and they did, and America did. And yet it seems that very quickly, as the generations get further and further away from that actual real attachment to the near loss of that freedom, I don't think they value it. So, and it's not difficult to see why. The social contract with young people has completely been broken. They've got no chance. They've got no chance. What are they going to do? They're going to keep paying rent to some rich landlord for the rest of their lives. And what? You know, what's the point almost? So I kind of understand that. And of course we're being told that it's everybody else's fault, that it's, you know, that it's somebody, it's not the Jews this time, although in some circles it is still the Jews being blamed, which I never have understood, but it's other. It's disabled people sponging off the state, other. It's migrants that come here. I'm not talking about the illegal migrants now, I'm talking about the legal migrants. They're taking our jobs. They're the reason that the NHS is busy, because we let in 1 million over a short period of time. They're the reason that rents are high. It's them. Nothing to do with the governments who have woefully let us down, of all persuasion, in the last 30, 40 years. Because they don't want to take responsibility. They want to blame other. And so now it's the unemployed as well, because they're sponging, all of them. So the disabled, the unemployed, and those pesky migrants coming over here and taking jobs in the NHS. It's their fault. And I don't know how much clearer I can make things, really. But I do understand that young people see it in that prism. They see it in that way. Because that's the way they're told to see it. Because the government's not going to take responsibility for it. None of them. Labour isn't. Keir Starmer isn't saying, look, it was under Labour that we opened the floodgates. It was our fault. Sorry, we're going to try and fix that now. None of them ever take responsibility. So it's left to us to hate each other, divide and conquer, divide and rule. If we're busy fighting each other, we're not paying attention to what they're doing, and that's how we lose democracy. But a lot of people, older people, don't vote either, because they feel that the social contract with them has broken down. So the fewer people that vote, the less likely we are to get a party that any of us can actually get behind. More division. Less democracy. So how do we fix that? How do we make that work? Give me a call. How do we value democracy? How do we return to valuing democracy? 0344 499 1000. All calls charged at national rate, but we do call you back. You can also text me, put the word talk and then your message to 87222.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And we're going to look at some sport now. I thought that would be a good idea. Alex Three Lions Irons joins me now, Talk Sport presenter and producer. Hello.
Good evening, Petrie. Always a good idea. What are you talking about?
It's always a good idea to talk sport. I walk through Talk Sport on my way here. Not that they ever pay any attention because I'm an old lady. So
Well, they don't when I'm there either, so I know how you feel.
Yeah, invisible.
Exactly.
Anyway, let's talk Man United. Because, you know, they've got to turn things around, haven't they? Got a new manager.
Yeah, and of course there's a couple of players that they might need to shift. One of those is Marcus Rashford, the Sir Marcus Rashford, I believe. He is, of course, has been integral in the England setup for a good few years now. Well, the Manchester United boss Ruben Amorim has suggested that he'd rather give a place on the bench to his 63-year-old goalkeeping coach instead of Marcus Rashford because of a perceived lack of effort.
I mean, look, you can't knock Ruben on this. He's as soon as he took over, he was like, "Nah, you're not. I don't like you." I mean, at least he's consistent, right?
He is consistent. He wasn't in the match day squad again on Sunday for when Manchester United won 1-0 at Fulham. A game that I was at and not particularly happy that Manchester United won, but you can't win them all. Marcus Rashford hasn't been in the squad for 6 weeks. Of course, the transfer window is closing on the 3rd of February. It is unclear what the future holds for Marcus Rashford, who Amorim criticised for not showing the attitude of someone giving the maximum every day. There has been talk of him potentially going on loan to a club in Europe, potentially AC Milan of Italy. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to Rashford. If he doesn't leave, then he's kind of just stuck there until the end of the season. So I know he'll probably want to move on. The club will want to move him on. Kyle Walker, who is on loan at Man City from Manchester, he's on loan at AC Milan from Man City, even is already there. So he'd have a fellow England international player with him if he did go to AC Milan. But you know, everything's looking a bit unclear for Rashford at the moment. And to be fair,
nobody wants
we've
to
been
buy
here
him?
before.
Nobody wants.
He's way too expensive. His wage demands are way too high. I think he's on about £375,000 a week, which would have to. The only clubs that would probably take him for that amount of money is a club out in Saudi. And whether or not Marcus Rashford would want to go to Saudi Arabia is another story, because once players go out there, their international career and also their club career is more or less over.
Yeah. What about the US? Could they afford him?
Probably not. The US system's a bit different than anywhere else. It depends if a club would be able to put up that kind of money. The way that it works is that they'll have a star player allowance. Whether a club can fork up the money even with that star player allowance to buy him is another story. Of course, Inter Miami have got Messi, and there are a few other players out there, but I don't think any of them, apart from Messi, are anywhere close to the demands that Marcus Rashford is currently on.
Well, he's going to have to lower his demands if nobody wants to buy him then. I mean, that's the way it goes. That's how talk got me cheap. I'm joking.
And me.
Yeah, but look, I mean, the thing is that Ruben Amorim has sent a very strong message to the rest of his squad. You know,
yeah, he has.
If you don't pull your weight, you are benched. You are not even benched. You are not anywhere near. So maybe that's why we're seeing an improvement in Man United's streak.
You say improvement. They've not been doing that well.
Their win
against Fulham. Their win against Fulham yesterday was their first win in quite some time, and even then they didn't deserve it. Meet that coming from a very bitter Fulham fan who had to endure that game yesterday. There have been talks of potentially Barcelona being involved with Marcus Rashford. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. We have also seen Anthony go on loan, a player that most Man United fans have not particularly had a good opinion of since his arrival at Old Trafford a couple of years ago. He's gone to Real Betis of La Liga. So players are starting to be moved on. You could say that the Deadwood is starting to be moved, but Manchester United still aren't that high up the table. They're only about 13th. So, they're still in the bottom half of the table. Yeah, but if you think
how Rashford is, he was the golden boy for a while, wasn't he? And now he's completely fallen. Well, look, I mean, they probably need somebody to clean the locker rooms. He could always do that. I mean, he'd be the most well-paid locker room cleaner, but...
I mean, I'd do it for a quarter of that, but I think even then I'd be the most paid locker room cleaner in the world.
Let's have a look at Leicester.
Well, not just Leicester, but talking of teams in the bottom half of the table that you think wouldn't be there, Spurs are another one of them. They're 15th at the moment. Leicester, they won their first ever game under former Manchester United manager Ruud van Nistelrooy. They beat Spurs at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium 2-0 with Jamie Vardy even doing what he's done once before at Spurs fans and pointing at the Premier League badge on his arm to say, we've won a Premier League and you haven't. So it's not been a good weekend for Spurs, and it hasn't been a good time for them for a while either. Leicester have been on a 7-match losing streak before this last weekend's game against Tottenham Hotspur. The mood in the stadium did turn toxic a full time, but Ange Postecoglou, otherwise known as Dr. Spurs, has not been the only one bearing the brunt of the supporters' rage, as fans made their feelings clear towards their chairman, Daniel Levy, and they have done for quite some time. Whenever Spurs seems to be doing badly, it is their chairman who gets the brunt of the ire of the Spurs fans. It's just Postecoglou has essentially said, I win things in my second season, and he's still on course to do that. But he could also get relegated and do that, which would be quite something.
Let's move on to the Super Bowl, of
Yes.
which you're a massive fan, aren't you?
I am indeed. So the Super Bowl is in 2 weeks' time, and we know who's going to be there. It'll be the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 1 win away from an unprecedented NFL three-peat after beating the Buffalo Bills to reach Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. They won 32-29 to overcome the Buffalo Bills to become the first back-to-back champions to return to the Super Bowl. They'll be facing the Philadelphia Eagles on the 9th of February in a repeat of Super Bowl 57. So it's a repeat of the final that we saw 2 years ago. They overcame the Washington Commanders on Sunday, beating them 55 points to 23. Although you could say it does sound like a romp. The Washington Commanders had done really well to get there to begin with. Nobody had predicted them to get into the playoffs, let alone get all the way through to the championship final. And to see them in a Super Bowl would have been fantastic. But it looks like we're going to see another Kansas City Chiefs win in the Super Bowl, 3 in a row. It's the first time. I think they'll be in their 5th Super Bowl out of 6.
Wow.
So, it's a bit of a monopoly at the moment in the NFL, which if you're a Chiefs fan, great. But if you're a fan of every other club, it's maybe not a good thing.
Bit miserable.
A little bit, yeah.
Talk to me about Rugby League, the Rugby League Challenge Cup.
So this is an exciting one and on a personal level as well, because a team that I used to play for called the Wests Warriors, who are based out in Acton in West London, they're through to the 3rd round of the Betfred Challenge Cup, which is where all the major teams from the Super League come in. So to get to the 3rd round, they had to beat the British Army, which they did on the weekend. They beat them 36 points to 18, and before that overcame
They're
Eastern.
a good team as well.
They are a good team.
Yeah.
They overcame Eastern Rhinos in the first round, who are a team based out in Colchester. Their reward for getting to the 3rd round of the Betfred Challenge Cup is a home tie against Super League giants Leeds Rhinos. So we're seeing a team who have won the Super League on countless occasions, who play, I think their stadium's about 20,000 people. They'll be travelling to what is essentially a field in Acton, which is behind my old high school.
Yeah, we've discussed those fields before because my son played for Wasps, and so I had to be
it's Wasps Rugby Club, which
so
is
it's
where
the
they're
same
playing. So
muddy field. Nice clubhouse. Not a very big
Very lovely clubhouse. I'm not sure how it's going to hold Leeds Rhinos.
I don't think it's going to.
Backroom staff and all of their fans.
Yeah, it's not. It's a bit small, but it is a nice clubhouse. And you and I know the muddy fields of that particular place really, really well. Thank you, Alex. It's wonderful to see you as ever. Alex, 3 Lions Irons, TalkSport presenter and producer.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good evening to you. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. And of course, we have the phone in at midnight. And on the 80th anniversary since the liberation of the Auschwitz death camp on Holocaust Memorial Day, a really quite shocking survey has come to the fore, which declared that 52% of Generation Z would be in favour of a dictatorship, a leader that would not have to bother with Parliament and elections. I just find that parallel absolutely jaw-dropping. I genuinely do. So why is that the case? And maybe you're somebody who agrees with that. Maybe you think, well, you know, if we had a dictator, they could make long-term plans. We could look after the NHS for 20 years in the future, not just 4 or 5. You know, maybe you think that that is the right way to go. If you don't, then why do you think Gen Z do? Why do you think they're between 13 and 27? Why do you think that age group is keen to turn its back on democracy? Give me a call. Personally, I think it's probably because all these politicians have let us all down so badly. They've got a lot to answer for, although it's not just that. So we'll talk about that at midnight. So give me a call. It's your chance to talk back. 0344 499 1000. So do give me a call. In the meantime, let's have a look at some entertainment news. And Beverly Lyons, entertainment reporter, joins me now. Beverly, it's been a while. How are you?
It has. Belated Happy New Year. We can still say it.
We can still say it. Yeah.
The longest January.
Well, thank you for joining me. Listen, Strictly, which, as you know, is not a show for me, but Mr. Go Compare, is that his name? That's him, isn't it? The Win.
Yes.
Win Evans.
Win Evans.
Has done it again. Caused a bit of trouble.
He seems to attract controversy. I know there was the video that was doing the rounds last time round where he had supposed WHT, wandering hand trouble, with Katya Jones. This time he has offended on a larger scale in that he was caught with a defamatory term towards his Jeanette Manrana, who hosts the live shows and is also a fantastic dancer. Of course, she's also married to Aliaz as well, who's dancing on the show. I don't want to say what the term was because it's really rude, but it was not good. And the BBC are sticking by him at the moment. He has apologised. This is a man who, he's a very popular figure in many ways. He's a bit like Marmite with some people as well. I've met him a few times. I was actually covering this and the story, and also going along to the Strictly shows here in Glasgow. And of course, he didn't turn up to the first one because he cited having an ankle injury, and he showed a picture of that swollen ankle and all that kind of stuff. But he latterly did appear and he sang, and actually the irony of it was he sang "This Is My Life and I Don't Give a Damn." He did apologise. He said during the live show, I've had a bit of a day. I've had a bit of a tough day. The problem is with this is that aside from the hugely defamatory, remark that he made, he also has a brand new series on the BBC called All at Sea. But he's also an integral part of the Strictly tour because he has got an incredible voice. I mean, when you hear it live.
Oh, he's an amazing opera singer. He was an opera singer before he did the adverts.
Fantastic.
Yeah. He's an amazing opera singer.
And, maybe a nice guy, but terribly misguided. It's one of those ones, though, you can't really get away with that sort of remark at all these days. And you certainly can't get away with it when you're a celebrity in the public eye.
Yeah. So and it's not enough to say, oh, well, he's a man of a certain age, that that's, you know, they sometimes say inappropriate things. Because actually, you know, man learnt to walk on two legs. We are quite capable of learning to not say bad stuff. Right, we've managed to learn quite a lot as we evolve. It's not enough to say, well, you know, he's a man of a certain age. That's just what they say.
I mean, you know, he is 53 years old today. This is his birthday. And what was quite interesting was the huge amount of support that all of his co-stars were giving him. Now, we know that there has been a history there of mental health issues, and that we have to take with gravitas, obviously. But that doesn't obviously explain the comments. And I mean, my one wish is that, you know, should he manage to hang on to his job and get through this, is that he really learns from this and that this never should happen again. Whether or not the British public will be so forgiving remains to be seen, and whether or not the BBC is sort of just waiting its time and thinking, you know, look, this is too chaotic for us, it's time to go. But so far, everybody's sticking by him. He got a lot of hugs during the show. He Aliaz went up to him, gave him hugs, kissed him on the cheek. Also, Jeanette Manrana said, you know, love you. And Shirley Ballas said that he was one of the nicest guys that she knows. In fact, the nicest she's ever met.
Listen, I'm sure he is, but it's the same argument that's being used to support Musk at the moment, that he's autistic, and therefore him throwing out that's right, strange behaviour was, you know, he just didn't know what he was doing. Anyway, well, listen, I've heard that he's a lovely guy as well. I just learn. Anyway, the Chase set is to become a tourist attraction. Why would anybody want to go and visit the Chase? Is it ending? Have we lost the Chase?
No, this is hot on the heels of, you know, we've got the sort of real life Monopoly games that you can go to, and also the Cube, obviously another great TV show, set up a sort of live experience thing where you can go into the Cube and play it with your friends. They are doing that now with the Chase, and it's going to become an interactive experience, and there will be some members of the actual Chase TV show that will turn up. So you might get the Beast, you know, coming along, Mark Levette, or you might get some of the other people that are on the show just turning up to it so that you can sort of participate with them. Bradley Walsh, who obviously hosts the show, has actually invested money in this. He thinks this is a big money spinner, and I think he's probably right. There's a lot of people that love it. There's already a board game out and other game sort of versions of it. So the fact that this is going to become an interactive, immersive experience, it's just one of those things, isn't it? You can do it now with your pals.
Imagine that it would be really expensive to pay somebody like the Beast to come and play with the, you know, the local Women's Institute. I mean,
well, I think it'll be one of those that will probably be used as a bit of a PR stunt when it happens,
and it'll be like, AI or something.
Players.
Yeah.
You know, it'll be one of those things, but you'll pay. I mean, think of all the corporate people that will see this as a group exercise, as a bonding experience. And of course, the further away you get from the chaser, the further they try to catch you. And it's just a big game of chasing, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is. It won't be the same without Bradley losing it, though. Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively and Justin Baldino. This is rolling on, isn't it? I wish they'd find some conclusion to this.
Everybody loves a bit of Hollywood drama, particularly when it's offset or even on set, as this allegedly happened. The whole thing surrounding this is that Blake Lively said that there was sexual harassment that took place on set from Justin Baldoni, whose film this was that they were doing. It's called It Ends With Us. Then, of course, he has sort of counter-sued and said that's not the case, you know, defamatory comments, etc. And what he's done is his PR campaign have rolled out a series of different videos. They're currently preparing a website with all the cuts and all the reels from the shoot.
Showing her to be quite...
actually happened.
Showing her to not be upset, basically.
Yes, they've had small talk. She said that, he allegedly talked about his porn collection, showed her pictures of his naked pictures of his wife, all that kind of thing, was overly familiar, tried to kiss her when it was unwarranted and all that kind of thing. And the scene that she talked about with regards to the kiss was something that he subsequently showed. And they just had sort of small talk, and they talked about their subsequent partners. Ryan Reynolds, and he said, "Oh, that's cute, your relationship," and she said, "Oh, it's more than that." Anyway, there's a whole big fiasco about it. Ryan Reynolds looks a bit tired from it all. He appeared with Hugh Jackman, who of course is embroiled in his own saga now that he's got a new woman after leaving his wife, so that's all going on in the background. And of course, Blake Lively has also, there's been text shared where she has referred to her two dragons. She based herself on a Game of Thrones character, saying, very resilient sort of thing throughout this. And Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift were her two dragons, i.e. don't mess with me. Whereas some texts have come out of Baldoni's camp saying, we can bury anything, we can bury her, sort of thing. So it's dirty. It's who knows what's actually going on.
And in LA right now, they're all going, "Oh, shut up! I've just lost my house and everything
That's true.
that I own. So go away." To words to that effect, which is what I'd be saying. Melania Trump on the front cover of Vogue. Now, I know that Anna Wintour did not want to do that in the past, but maybe persuaded this time. She is beautiful. I mean, why wouldn't she be on the front of?
Well, here's the thing. Before Melania was married to Trump, or before the whole presidential campaign, years and years ago, as a model, she did grace the cover of Vogue. But the first time round, as his first wife, as the first lady, she didn't manage to actually do that. But they did put Michelle Obama on about 3 times onto Vogue. So yes, Anna Wintour in the past has showed resilience and has not wanted to do it. I think there's been
she's shown her politics. Basically.
Yes. But this time round, we believe that Condé Nast may feel the pressure, the publishers, to do that, because, a lot of people are kowtowing to Trump now that he's back in power. They see that, he's a man that means what he says and intends to do what he says. And so to play the long game, we might just see Melania grace the covers of Vogue once again.
Look, as long as we don't see Donald Trump grace the cover of Penthouse magazine,
heaven forbid,
with a little fig leaf.
I was just going to say a staple would definitely cover it.
Apparently, so I've heard as well. But there you go. Well, look, Melania. Look, I'm not sure that all these things need to be involved that much in politics. It's a beauty magazine. She's beautiful. She's the first lady. They'll sell it to the MAGA lot. I mean, if you want to make money, then sell it. But why not? I mean, it shouldn't really be involved in. If you want to be in a political magazine, go and join a political magazine. That's what I would kind of say to Anna. But then she wouldn't put me on the front either. So I'd be.
Well, it's all about the outfits, isn't it, with Melania? And she certainly does hit the headlines with each one. We're wondering what she's going to turn up in next. And it does captivate the imagination. So when it comes to sort of style or fashion or whatever you want to call it, there's a statement. And as you say, she's a very beautiful woman. So
she absolutely is.
That's what Vogue's about.
And I love that Trump avoidance hat that she wore as well. The repeller of a fella. Thank you. Great to see you, Beverly Lyons, entertainment reporter. Right. Coming up, it's going to be Ross Kane. Yeah, him. He's in the studio to go through the newspapers for tomorrow. So stay where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Good to have your company, and with me, I'm absolutely thrilled to say, is Russ Kane, writer, broadcaster, and celebrant.
Yes.
Celebrant,
yes.
So you marry people now, and you do that?
I'm doing mostly funerals. I am marrying people, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've got 3 next week.
Have you?
I know, it's just gone through the roof.
How?
But I'm really looking forward to, I like the weddings, and I'm doing a wedding shortly. And
I've already told you you're booked for my funeral. If I
do you know, the interesting thing is so many people have said that to me.
Yeah, I'd
And
love
I
you to do it. Because what I hate...
But as you're way younger than me, and B, I don't want you going anywhere.
No, I know.
Because that'd be
But the
good.
worst thing is celebrants who don't know who they're talking about.
Well, this is what I hear. I know.
And they pronounce your name. When my dad died, the celebrant, they got my name wrong. I mean, it's just
Petrie.
like, oh, come
What
on.
do they call him?
Yeah,
Petra.
Petrie. Yeah.
Petra or something.
Petrie or something. I don't
Peachtree.
know. Got it wrong. And
Yes, it's
the
very
last
embarrassing.
funeral I went to, they got the name of the street the person lived on. Right? They didn't care. It was just like, anyway, that's the problem I have. Let us turn to
Yes.
the story that I'm covering. And the reason I wanted to cover this today is because it being the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, right?
Of course.
So I saw this survey and I thought, today of all days, to see this survey is horrifying. Of all days. A new survey reveals that most young Britons believe a dictatorship to be a solution to the country's problems. The other solution they have is it to be run by the military. This was 52% of Gen Z, which is at the age between 13 and 27, want Britain to be ruled by a dictator. And trying to understand that is one thing, but trying to get them to understand that in a short while ago a dictator managed to do what he did is another thing altogether. So let's start with looking at why it is that young people are in favour of a dictatorship.
You can see the genesis of this. It's horribly easy to understand because we have lost, and you and I have talked about this for God knows how long, and it's getting worse and worse. Nothing has improved. We have lost faith. So it's not just the Gen Z. Everyone has lost faith in our politicians. They are seen as useless, complicit.
Liars.
An absolute liars. I mean, how do you know when a politician's lying? Their lips are moving. The old gag. But it's horribly true, and it's got worse. And I think people are saying, we can't put up with this anymore. We just can't, because the final, I feel so strongly about this, the final straw is, I think the majority of people don't believe they have our interests. You, me, everybody out in the street, everyone out in the studio there, at heart. They don't care about us at all. We have been thrown under the bus. And I think people have said, you know what? Enough's enough.
Well, we see that in every election, that turnout numbers,
They're pathetically
Labour won on a 36% of turnout. So it is, but the trouble is that is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely.
Because every time that they lie to us, that we lose another tranche of people who are going to vote.
Yeah.
And then the fewer people that vote, we get in political parties that nobody wants.
Yeah.
And then they do what they want to do again, and then you get fewer votes next time, and on it goes. We're seeing that in the United States of America at the moment. The numbers of people who didn't turn out to vote is massive. You know, no politician can say, look, I've won the country, although Keir Starmer tried to, and Donald Trump is saying the same. Yes, Trump and Keir may have got the majority, but not the majority of the people.
Well,
It's the majority of the voters.
Trump did win the popular vote.
Yes, he did, but of voters. I'm talking that within those that voted, absolutely. Keir Starmer, of those who voted, won. Landslide victory. But it's of those people.
And you also
that
have
voted.
to say, I'm sorry to interject, you also have to say how many of those Labour voters were legitimate. How many were legitimate? How many were just, shoo-ins or this ballot, this postal nonsense?
Look, but this is the other thing, isn't it? If we lose faith in the democratic process, then fewer and fewer people are going to vote, and then democracy dies. That's how it crumbles, or one of the ways it crumbles. The other thing, of course, is that you have politicians who, like we said, they don't do what they said they're going to do.
Yeah.
But with young people, any social contract that we've had with young people has gone. There is no social contract anymore. There's no contract that says if you work hard, you can attain a property.
Nothing.
Or you.
Nothing.
So this is why I believe this is why so many young people have opted out of work.
How are they going to get on the property ladder?
They're not going to.
How are they ever?
They can't.
Ever going to own a home?
And renting now.
It's
is
obscene. It's
eye-watering.
obscene. It's
So what's the point? Actually, what's the point in them moving out of home and getting a job and voting or having anything to do with anything when society has abandoned them?
And also, and I hate to say this, but I will anyway, to say, well, I'm going to pay tax. Oh, I see where it's going. Well, that's garbage. Why should I pay for that?
Exactly.
I'm not supporting these ideas. These are some of these ideas, which are costing fortunes, are utter madness. It's like if I had 7 glasses of Malbec with you and I said, oh, great idea. It's as stupid as that. I mean, they just don't stand up to the light of day. Come back to something that you said about the military. All right, that doesn't surprise me in the least. When Harold Wilson was Prime Minister, and you know this because, you're smarter than a whip, but when Harold Wilson was Prime Minister, he thought he was being paranoid, that he was being spied on, and he thought there were moves to get rid of him. He was being spied on because it was believed he was a mole for the Kremlin. The military were ready to move in. There was going to be tanks on the lawn. Being British, there was lots of just tut-tut, and they had another little digestive biscuit. And the people who were going to do this, one could only call it a rather gentle coup, were just gently moved aside. They weren't sent to some gulag archipelago or shot. They were moved aside. If you don't think that's happening now, you're incredibly naive. I don't mean you, because you're not.
But the idea that
it's brewing.
That would be preferable to democracy.
Would it give people... I'm not saying... I don't want to have some junta.
Yeah, military
because
junta
suddenly I'm
taking
living
over.
in Uruguay or so. Who the hell voted for that? But would it give people hope? What's happened is we've lost hope. We're kind of holding our noses, holding our breath and thinking if we can get through somehow... And by the way, I'm not a Tory fan. They had 13 years, they screwed it up. Let's be clear about that. I'm not some apologist for what they did. It was ridiculous. They just gave up. But I think people are thinking if we hold our noses and hold our breath and go through another 4.5 years of this nonsense, maybe we'll come out the other side with something new. Who knows? I'm not convinced people can wait 4.5 years. That's what scares me.
Yeah, and I think that again is another part of the reason that Gen Z, whatever, if I'm American.
Well, we're Z. Yeah?
Z.
London.
That is also difficult for that generation is the idea of waiting for improvement.
Yeah.
Because there's a sentence here which I found really interesting. They've grown up with hyper-individualism, instant interactions, instant communication, instant results, frictionless debt, and algorithmic transaction.
And instant gratification.
And instant gratification. So the idea that because a consensual democracy is by its nature slow, it has to go through processes, it has to go through Parliament, it may go to a referendum, that takes 2 years, as we know, to do all of these things. And maybe that's just too slow for Gen Z as well. Because, look, everything is so instant. I mean, my son is at the tail end of Gen Z. He didn't have a smartphone when he was growing up. He didn't have that recourse to instant.
That's going to take therapy to get through.
I know. He's well, you know him. He's absolutely brilliant. He's like me. He's not really into that stuff. But you know, the idea of saying to somebody who's 20, especially in this business, I used to have to go to a library and look at microfiche if I wanted to research a story. And I'm not even that old.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
Microfiche.
You'd have to go back and look at old newspapers that were kept in the library in this machine, right?
Yeah.
If you wanted to go, there was a story, wasn't there?
Where was it?
Do you remember
in the
that?
Delaware Daily.
I've got to go back.
1936.
And that's how you do it. And now, of course, you know, again, the delightful conversations we'd have in the pub going, what was the name of that guy? And it would take us 4 hours and they go, I remember. Now it's just, hang on a minute.
Siri, what's the name
of... what's the name of the film?
The Third Jedi on the left.
Yeah, and so I think that they gained that speed but lost the appreciation of the journey.
Well, they've never enjoyed the journey. They've never enjoyed
they've never
the journey.
had to have. They've never had to make
and
one.
the other thing, I know I've banged on about this again for years, is the dopamine hit. All right?
The instant gratification.
You know that the algorithms on all social media are designed deliberately to give you a dopamine hit. You need that hit. Well, if you get into it, try not to go down that road. But if you do, you need that hit more and more and more. It's like drugs. You know, you've got to up the amount that you take to get the same effect. And if you're not getting that dopamine hit, then you get a bit ratty. That's what they've grown up with. And that's very difficult to get out of.
Policy and change to be like an Amazon purchase. Right? They want it straight, they want it straight away.
But I know you don't.
I mean, I promise you now, I look at that particular online shopping
organisation
and go, they can't deliver it until the day after tomorrow.
I can't wait.
I'm not having that. I'm the one that used to have to go to the shop.
It's shocking.
But now I'm going, it's not on Prime. Right.
It is shocking. And do you know what? I have the same view.
It's awful.
It's disgusting. We've got ourselves spoilt, and then you have to say, get a hold of yourself.
Come on, it's the day after tomorrow.
You know, I don't desperately need...
I don't need it.
I don't need those pen refills. I'll last 48 hours.
I know.
The world will still turn, and then I get my biro refills. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
Relax.
But this is all they've known.
Yeah.
Is that instant, right, it's got to be done tomorrow. So when Keir Starmer comes in and says, right, I'm going to fix the
fix the
NHS.
Of course you are. Magic.
Yeah. They're going, well, I've got an appointment on Wednesday. How's that going? How's that going? I've got to see somebody on a week on... That's not happened. I went to the hospital. Still people in corridors. You know, it's that as well. People
and
expect
also,
that change to be quick.
Possibly, because, excuse me, and Trump's come in and on straight out the trap, he goes, right, boom, I said I was going to do this, boom, 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 and he's there and he's signing all this stuff, whether you like him or whether you don't.
Well, whether we know the conclusion to what he's signing yet or not.
Who knows with any of this stuff, you know? Let's be honest, it's all above our pay grade and it's all smoke and mirrors and God only knows.
Yeah, they're all liars. They're all liars.
Yeah, well, of course they are. They're all kind of terrible people. Then you've got to choose the least terrible person. Yeah. Well, okay, he's terrible, but give him a go because he's not as terrible as that person who is truly ghastly. I can't vote for them. I mean, that's how it is. What a state. How the hell did we get here?
I think the standard of our politicians is woeful. It is woeful.
Woeful doesn't even begin to touch the
look at the
sides.
Tories in the last few years. They were infighting and bitching with each other. How many prime ministers did we have?
27.
It's embarrassing.
27.
It's embarrassing.
Bobby
and now
Crush.
the Tories are thinking of getting rid of Kemi and getting somebody else into it. It's like, have you learnt nothing? You bunch of cretin.
But it's the people that we don't see. Oh, I mean, we've known this for years, but it's the people behind the scenes who are saying, Kemi, we gave her 37 seconds.
Yeah.
Time's up. Sorry, could you...
Move on.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. You had your go. Off you go.
Next.
You know, I don't understand it. It looks... It's like political suicide. You're thinking you're heading over a cliff.
Yeah,
do
why are
you
you
not
doing
do you
this?
not see this? I'm not the
Because
brightest.
they think we're
brightest-
stupid.
Yeah,
You know, it's
everybody does. They all do.
it's the Westminster bubble. It's
Yeah,
the Westminster
they have no
bubble.
idea
They
outside
have
of it.
no idea what's going on. They don't eat with us. They don't drink with us. They've got something like 18 restaurants and cafes all within Westminster,
You've been there
all
loads of
subsidised.
times,
Yeah,
right?
all subsidised by us.
Does it feel like another world?
Yeah.
It's like another world. You
It's
walk in and it's
Hogwarts.
like, wow,
It's
this
Hogwarts.
is cool.
It's Hogwarts.
Oh, it's completely.
Yeah.
You're just expecting Dumbledore to,
Yeah.
and Mr. Snape.
You know that
to turn
Margaret
up.
Thatcher still got her hook in the Commons. They've got you remember at school?
Cool.
What were they called? Cloakroom.
Cloakroom.
The cloakroom area.
Pegs.
The pegs in there.
Oh,
Margaret
oh, oh.
Thatcher has still got her peg there, which nobody dare put a coat or a...
No.
And they've
'Cause it
got a
would just
special
burn.
place. They've got a special place for their swords.
For their swords.
Swords. But they don't...
What was that?
they've
Knife
st-
crime.
They've still got a sword. They've still got a sword special place. But Margaret Thatcher's coat hook, and I kind of expected to go in there and say, you know, in primary schools when they take over a peg and they've got this is Petrie's peg and it's all decorated.
Nice.
You do that in your lesson and you make a little. But they haven't got the. Sadly, they don't have those. But they do have Margaret Thatcher's
should
pegs.
have those.
don't they?
Nice little card.
They could do it on the
cartoon.
first day in with a bit of glitter.
Nice thing. Be lovely. They bring in their little Tommy Tippy lunchbox, and you got the whole thing going.
It would keep them busy. Let's be honest. Let's just keep them away from actual politics because they're rubbish. Listen. I'm disheartened and worried and scared about democracy, but I am not surprised.
I'm not scared.
Oh, I am. It can go like that. We've seen it.
And then what would happen? But, you know,
Dictatorship.
when we have these discussions, I mean, you and I, when people have these discussions, I always say, okay, let's go to the ultimate, end of the road. What's the worst that could happen? Hitler again.
It's the worst that could happen. Yeah, we've learned nothing. Look at the AfD.
Oh,
in Germany.
we've learned absolutely nothing.
AfD in Germany rising again, being told not to go further and to not be embarrassed by their grandparents' disasters. Do you not heard that?
I mean, what have they got to be embarrassed about?
Yeah,
I mean,
they've been told to
name
write.
me one
They've been
thing.
told
Name me 6 million things they
by
should be embarrassed
Elon
about.
Musk said, rise above the embarrassment of your. That's the AfD. Those vote elections coming up. So yes, I am fearful because I do think that democracy is very weak at the moment.
But when you remember, what was the name of oh God, it's gone right out of my head. The leader of Germany who let, please come in, let 1 million people.
Merkel.
Yeah, Angela Merkel. Angela.
She
Just call her Merkel. Ms. Merkel, right? Ms. Merkel was head of the Communist Youth Party. Don't forget that.
I know. And
So when you've got that extreme and everyone goes, really? I didn't know. Yeah. What, you think this came out of nowhere? What, you read an article in Reader's Digest?
Well, and you have to look at Keir's politics as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I'd rather not because I've just eaten. But when you've got that, then you think, well, obviously there's going to be a counterbalance. No one's going to like that counterbalance, but no one liked that balance either.
Well,
that's what's happening.
Yeah, I think that if the Labour government doesn't actually address some of the concerns of the population, that is what's turning people to the right. And I think that happened in Germany, it's happened in Italy, it's happening in France, it's happening all over because they refuse to deal with issues. Anyway, got to take a break. Ross Kane.
Okay.
We'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, thanks for your company. It's Petrie here with Russ Kane, and we're going through Tuesday's newspapers. Let's have a look at the Times.
Yes.
China's cheap AI chatbot wipes billions off Silicon Valley shares. China has mounted its most serious challenge to American dominance in AI after one of its startups created a powerful new program at a fraction of the cost of US rivals.
Yeah.
DeepSeek sent shockwaves through the markets with its RI large language model.
You love those, don't you?
Yeah, I love them. Can't do without them.
I know.
Developed in 2 months, despite US control on chip exports. So basically, they've come up with this thing. It took them 8 weeks to make it, and it's better than what Silicon Valley have been pumped out. So it's wiped billions off the value of those companies, of those AI companies.
The numbers are jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
700 billion, right, wiped off. And chipmaker Nevada, they're too cool to have a vowel. It goes Nevada. Nevada. Losing, you ready? $550 billion. It's unbelievable. DeepSeek claims it spent just $6 million developing it. It's like chump change.
It's nothing.
It's absolute chump change.
Yeah.
It's like lunch. It's lunch money. So they've lost absolute fortunes here. I'm not hugely surprised because, you know, I'm a petrol head, devout petrol head, and you see the cars coming out of China and they're incredible.
Well, I don't know why you're calling yourself a petrol head, since you should be an electricity head.
I'm not an electricity head. I'll be the last to go. I got nowhere to plug it in. I got nowhere. It's just, and I'm not going to spend another £20,000 minimum to replace exactly the car I've got now, which I'm very happy. Little tiny car to run around in. That's what I got. You know. Anyway, they're calling this, and it took me ages to work out what they meant when I was sitting outside. Sputnik moment, and then I thought, I get it. Now I get it. In other words, America was very complacent in the, was it 57, 58?
Yeah.
57, I think. And they sent, suddenly the Russians said, oh, by the way,
We've got a satellite.
We've got a satellite. It's called Sputnik. How are you doing? Oh my God. And they go into a huge, massive
but I mean,
panic.
also, you've got an AI chatbot, which is probably developed by AI, which is why it only cost $6 million to develop it. And so we're going to see this more and more now, is that AI will be creating the next level of AI and the next level of AI at a fraction of the cost. So these Silicon Valley companies are done. I mean, it's like the bubble has just burst on technology.
More terrifying, where I do get scared, is when Skynet becomes self-aware. You just said it. You put your finger on it. You said AI is developing AI. When does it get to the point where AI goes, hey, we don't need these people.
No,
we don't need human. What do we need human interaction for?
Do you know what? I think I would applaud the Skynet and say, just wipe us out. We're revolting.
Oh, hang on.
We're horrible.
I haven't got through all episodes of Silent Witness yet.
Well, get on with it, because we are disgusting. The human race is an absolute joke. We have failed to learn anything at any point in history, and we continue to be nasty to each other.
Yeah, we're vile to each other.
Time to go.
Did you used to like George Carlin, the comedian? George Carlin, American. Please watch him. George Carlin, who died some years back, he really was a prophet when it comes to seeing how the world would work out. And he does this one routine where he says, people are going on about people and humanity. It doesn't matter. The world was here before, the world will be after. And he does this moment, and for me it's a seminal moment in comedy and philosophy, where he goes, and the earth just goes, and shakes humanity off.
Yeah.
With that one gesture, it's stuck with me for decades.
Yeah, I think we're rubbish as a species, absolute pants. So I say can't happen quick enough, frankly.
Well, you don't want to die, though.
No, I don't. But I don't. But if I have to, so that this plague on the earth is gone.
All right, but if you and I we want our kids to go. They're our babies.
But what is in it for them? What is happening to the world at the moment? You've got those
yeah, but
we can't just look at ourselves in isolation.
Surely
No, we can't.
the only way we can
This
get
is
through
the
it.
problem with the human
It's
race.
the only
You look
way
at what's
we can get
happening in
through.
Afghanistan. Those women who are not even allowed to speak
Oh,
now.
this is insanity. Absolutely.
So, I
And
mean,
where's
but we
the
have
women's-
to look at the
But
world.
Petrie, where's the women's group screaming out about this?
Well, there was
The
a women's
silence is bloody
march. There
deafening.
has been a women's march. It just doesn't get the publicity because there's no violence there. So it doesn't get the publicity.
Appalling.
It is appalling. And this is why we can't just look at us and go, this is what's happening. Oh, we're all right, Jack.
But we're not all right.
No, we're not all right.
We're
We're
not all
horrible.
right,
And
but
the rest of the world can go to hell in a handcart. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
isn't it? That's what we're saying,
Well-
basically. And I refer you again to that poem. And then they came for me.
us. For me, yeah.
It's the same thing. We're all going, well, I'm not Afghani, so I don't need to worry about that. I'm not that, so I don't need to worry about
Well,
that. And this is what happens. We don't care about each other.
Interestingly,
We're disgusting.
in one of the papers, obviously I won't be able to find it now, but under new legislation which they're planning, it'll be, I'm not going to rustle the papers, it's no pun intended, under the, see what I did there? Saying two-tier policing will be a crime.
Oh, yeah, you know, I saw that. I saw that as well. I can't remember
like,
where.
Really?
Really.
Anything else? You
Yeah,
don't... what-
it's far
you-
right. It's extremism. It's encouraging
it-
extremism.
it's-
But this is again how you lose democracy. You start to silence people saying stuff. But let's just very quickly look at other stories on the Times.
Yes, please.
Prostate now the most common cancer.
Yep.
Prostate cancer is the most common cancer in England, with cases having risen by 25% in the past 5 years.
so
It has
scary.
overtaken breast cancer
Yep.
after 55,000 men were diagnosed. However, again, we can look at this and go, oh, that's really scary. But
Mm-hmm.
actually what's happening is a lot of men are now going to have checks,
Yeah.
and the cancer is being found early,
Thank God.
and it's curable. So
Yeah.
although it is the most common cancer, that is down to men now not dying of embarrassment, and they are going, and also the procedure now, it can be checked with a blood test and things like that. So more men are going forward. They don't have to have the whole finger
Or two fingers if you want a second opinion.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And I mean,
weak.
my father died of this disease.
Well, so did
and
mine.
He died of embarrassment.
My pop died of prostate cancer, right? So it terrifies me, obviously, and I get
You get checked.
I get checked like all the damn time
So if
because
they find
prostate
it
is
and it's
get to my age,
completely-
prostate's a swine.
Yeah, and it can be cured. So although it is now the most common cancer, it may just be that more men are going forward to be checked, and it's being found
it's
early
such-
and it's survivable.
And it's such a quick procedure.
Yeah, I know.
It's like not a big, I'm like a world leading coward. It's no big deal. It's nothing. And they can detect it. And it is time sensitive. And it can be easily dealt with.
Yeah, they're saying
Seriously.
huge rise in diagnosis is largely due to increased awareness. Celebrities including Stephen Fry, Bill Turnbull and Sir Chris Hoy have revealed their diagnoses, and more men are living into their 70s and 80s when the risk is highest. So if you haven't had your prostate
good.
checked, get it
Get it done.
checked.
Get it done.
Get it checked.
Please.
Right, we've got to take a break.
Okay.
Russ and I will be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, it's Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. With me is Russ Gay.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay myself.
Yay! Yeah, you can yay yourself.
Thanks.
That's fine.
Well, thank you for
but do it privately.
Okay, yeah, all right, I'll do it afterwards.
The Sun.
Yeah,
newspaper,
your Soaraway Sun.
The Soaraway
Okay,
Sun.
I'll find it. You keep going.
Tuesday, Coke shame ref exclusive. Now, this was the SAC referee David Coote
Yes.
has revealed he turned to cocaine. Now, up until now, when I've talked about this story, I've had to say that he was seen with a white powder.
Could have been talcum powder.
Because it could have been.
Could have been baking powder.
Because, of course, you don't want to be sued. But
No, wouldn't be good.
the front of the Sun says that that he has revealed he turned to cocaine over fear of coming out as gay in the macho world of the Premier League. Tearful Coote says he took the coke to escape after being forced to hide being gay. Coote, 42, also admitted he was not sober in his rant at ex-Liverpool boss Jurgen Klopp, and got abuse and death threats as a ref. Look, whatever the truth of this story is, it is still a very macho world, football, and I imagine that it is still very, very difficult for gay players or managers or refs or anybody associated with the game to come out. And I have sympathy for that.
I think it's extra hard to understand, maybe for you and I, because we mix with the people we mix with, and it's like someone's got brown hair, someone's got red hair, someone's gay. Big deal. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's irrelevant. It's an irrelevancy.
Yeah.
Are they any good? Are they nice people? That's all that matters.
That's all we care.
But it is, you know, I don't play sport. I hardly watch it, and so I can imagine he's under terrible pressure. I'm not convinced that becoming, you know, addicted to coke or taking coke.
No, I mean, that is not going to be the solution.
Really,
and it clearly wasn't the solution, because he got him sacked,
yes,
right?
Exactly. So.
As one of the most senior refs as well, my understanding was. But I wonder if he felt he had no choice but to come out in both senses of the word, and say, this is why I behaved the way that I did. And maybe there will be some forgiveness for him and he can go back into the game.
You're going to hate what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say, no, it's not desperately controversial. I think a lot of people say, oh, he was on coke. Oh, well, that's all right, then it makes sense. I hate to say it. You know, I don't touch drugs. It's not my thing. It's not my thing. Never has been. I'm not moralistic about it. It's just not my thing. Do whatever everyone do what the hell you want. None of my business. I hope he can come back. I don't know. I don't know anything about him. So, is he a good ref? Could he come back?
Yeah, apparently he was. But there was some suspicion as well about some fraudulent behaviour as well.
Oh, well, then it's not a good ref.
Then it's not a good ref.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
I've just remembered that yellow card thing. So maybe. But that has yet to be proved. So,
okay. Well, it's a hell of a front page, though.
It's a big front page.
It is an interesting thing, because you've got Royal Marks, you've got the size of a postage stamp, Royal Marks Holocaust, with an amazing picture of our king wiping away a tear. It's a beautiful, poignant picture, and the princess lighting a candle. Beautiful. Then the rest of the page, I was too scared to come out as gay.
Yeah.
And
well, it's sport, isn't it? It's kind of the Sun's thing.
I get it.
Right, The Guardian, again, reflecting that emergence as a rival to OpenAI.
Here we go.
And this worrying story, the Never Again Auschwitz survivors warn of a new age of hatred. On a day of startling blue skies, Auschwitz survivors stood before princes and presidents to remind the world, perhaps for the final time, of the horrors they suffered. Beneath a white marquee erected in front of the gate to the former Nazi death camp, which famously had that Arbeit Nacht frei, work sets you free, on the front of it. 4 former inmates, the youngest age 86, the oldest 99, warned world leaders that's the 80th anniversary of its liberation against the danger of rising anti-Semitism. And we are seeing anti-Semitism rising, and we're seeing all sorts of intolerance and hatred rising.
It's exponential. If you think back 10 years,
I know.
you think, again, how, in the name of God, did we get where we are now?
Yeah, well...
And those, I watched some of the service. I was running around like a nut today, but I saw some of it first thing, and it was beyond moving. It haunts me anyway. It haunts me anyway, every day. So, it was incredibly moving and touching and sad and tearful, and you think, I don't think the world's learnt anything at all.
No.
And that is the worst thing one could say about humanity.
The film that I'm watching at the moment called The Zone of Interest.
No, I can't.
It's extraordinary.
I know the story, etc., etc.
It's extraordinary because the film is about not what you see, but what you don't see, and also the willful blindness of those people to what was going on literally next door. This is about Rudolf Höss and his wife, and it's based on a book where they weren't the main characters, but the film decided to put Höss in there as the main character with his family. And it's so ordinary. It's so ordinary.
The banality
of
evil.
it. Yeah, the banality
of evil,
of turning the other way. It's absolutely brilliant. If you've not seen it, The Zone of Interest, it is astonishing.
Yes, it's meant to be absolutely
It is astonishing. Because the shocking thing is that there are no shocks in it. There's no big surprises. You don't see people being murdered. You don't see anything, really. You just see the banality of people going about their lives. Very basic conversations, nothing very interesting. But you hear it all, and
it's in the soundtrack.
It's just extraordinary. Anyway, it's a fantastic.
And that's how
movie.
evil succeeds. If the devil came along with flaming eyes and horns and goat's feet and all the rest of it, you'd run a mile. But the devil wouldn't. He'd be charming. He'd be urbane. He'd be pretty handsome. He'd be persuasive. Of course he would. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about all the top of the Nazi regime, they were the most ordinary, boring nobodies.
Yeah, which is why they needed that uniform and power.
Of course they did. My God, they thought it was blooming marvellous.
Yeah, awful.
Ugh.
Anyway, the Daily Mail covers that photograph of King Charles there, emotional.
Yes.
The King wipes away a tear at a ceremony in Poland at Auschwitz, and before that gateway of death, they gathered for the last time the handful of eyewitnesses to history's greatest abomination. It's an incredible front page, I think.
It's a very, very moving front page, and I think that picture encapsulates of the princess, and certainly the king, encapsulates that we still need them as a kind of stability thing.
Was it Princess Alice who lived in Greece during the Second World War? She was almost entirely deaf, but she took in Jews before Greece was liberated and hid them in her home, and she used her deafness to frustrate the Gestapo when they came round to ask her questions and they used to get so annoyed with her, and she kept these Jews with her until liberation.
Wow. Well, bless her for that.
Yeah. So The Independent for Tuesday, long walk home for 200,000 in Gaza. And what are they going home to? I mean, again, and at the same time, Donald Trump saying, well, we need to clear them all out of Gaza because it's good beachfront property. And he's asked Egypt and one other country.
Well, Egypt won't get involved.
To take the Gaza.
No, they won't.
No, of course they won't.
Have you seen? Well, of course you have, because you see everything. You're a news hound. Everyone forgets that wall that Egypt built to keep everyone from Gaza is gigantic. It's not like a little wall. It's nothing like the southern border. It's huge.
They mean it. They really
have
really
zero intention of taking one person in. They're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it, even if Donald Trump does think it's a good idea.
No, well, they're going to just say no.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
the Daily Star.
Yes, this was a cracker.
A billionaire tech bros in turmoil as cheap new Chinese AI makes rivals look like proper thickos. War of the psycho scumbag chatbots.
It's fabulous. I don't know quite. It is a gift that the Daily Star, bless them, can take. They must have so much fun just to write this, because you've got these trillions of dollars being wiped off the American Stock Exchange, etc. And they come, War of the Psycho Scumbag Chatbots.
It's genius.
It is genius.
I will never let anyone slag
so
off the
revolting.
Daily Star.
Although, my favourite from this headline, this whole front page, right, apart from the picture of the scumbag chatbot, is this, because it's something that where
We all
you
need
live
to
and
know.
what. Inside, how to fight off an irate bear. I was in the supermarket the other day, coming up the yogurt aisle. I thought, what am I going to do?
What am I
If
going to do?
only I'd have had the Daily Star, I would have not had to encounter that unexpected.
That
you know,
really,
confrontation.
not unexpected. Not these days. They're everywhere.
Well, I didn't expect it in Tesco's, to be honest with you, but there you go.
Right, we've got to
What
take a
did you do?
break. I know we can't read the inside though, because we only have the front pages. I'd love to know. Let's take a break. We'll be back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Good to have your company, and we are in the company of Russ Kane, writer, broadcaster and celebrant, and going through the front pages for Tuesday. Hardly surprising, Russ, that so much reflecting on that day of remembrance, of the liberation. This was the liberation by the Russians of Auschwitz concentration camps 1 and 2, I believe they. The Metro, astonishing photograph from the front of the Metro. It could have been taken at any time in history, I think, that photo, really. Auschwitz liberation, 80th anniversary. In a place of no hope, there is always hope, and survivors prove how they were able to live full lives after witnessing the horrors of the Holocaust, because they went out and tried to live a life.
I can't begin to, I can't even find the words actually, Petra, but I can't begin to imagine how you ever can be, I'll use the word normal, or embrace life Or maybe you embrace it with more energy.
Yeah, because
I
you've
don't
seen
know. I don't know.
I mean, but for me, the incredible strength of some of these people, it really is extraordinary. There was a woman being interviewed today who was actually born in the camp at 3 pounds, and her mother kept her alive somehow, and she was talking today. There's an absolutely extraordinary woman, but it's for me, I don't understand how one human being can do that.
No, nor me.
Another.
Nor me. I don't.
On an industrial scale, that they became like Rudolf Hoss loved his horse and his dog, but couldn't see people as human beings. He couldn't. He didn't. It was just, didn't even cross his mind.
Well, it was just,
didn't cross their mind to think this was wrong in any way. How do you get to that point?
I can't put myself into that headspace, to use a hackneyed phrase. I can't. It's quite impossible how you can dehumanise babies, children.
Yeah.
To that level. It's what kind of utter monster are you?
And unionists and communists,
yes, and
homosexuals and
intellectuals and anybody you didn't like.
Anybody you didn't like.
Anyone who you were a bit miffed at.
Yeah.
And I think maybe I don't know. You know, so much has been written about it, so many films made about it, so many documentaries, and having watched so much of it, I am none the wiser.
And you know that Donald Trump's reenacting a law from the 1400s, comes into force, I think, in July of this year, where people can go and hunt immigrants.
I'm sorry, what?
The people of America
can go and hunt them.
And
that's a Netflix film all over, isn't it?
Yeah, and encouraging Americans to report undocumented migrants who might be living next door.
It's the Stasi. It's the Stasi meets the Capos. That's what it is.
I mean, the echoes of the past. People aren't hearing them, and I'm really worried about it. I genuinely. Anyway. Yeah, that was one of his. Can we look that up just quickly? This law, it's got a very special name, but it's been reenacted in the 1400s.
Shoot people you don't like law. That's what it's basically
bounty
called.
hunting. It's a bounty hunter's law. And people are being offered $1,000.
Oh my God! There's a movie.
To shock people.
There's a movie called.
It's genuinely.
No. I get it.
Yeah.
There's a movie called The Hunt. And there's been several movies made of this where instead of hunting animals, you're hunting people, and very rich people pay a fortune. They go into this huge area, etc., etc., etc. You can see that happening.
This is about undocumented migrants who currently pay $100 billion into the welfare. Although they're undocumented, they pay taxes and they pay into the welfare and medical aid and.
How do they know that? I'm not doubting it because you say it's usually true. But how do they divvy up? They haven't got any documentation. They're here illegally, but they're paying taxes. How does that work?
I mean, these are the figures that not just people in America are suggesting, but economists from around the world. Mississippi lawmaker wants bounty hunters to find undocumented migrants.
Where is he from? Mississippi.
Mississippi.
We'll say no more.
Alien Certified Bounty Hunter Program Fund shows how hardline immigration policies at the federal level have influenced policy proposals in states and localities.
Wow.
So I think it's coming into effect in July.
Do you have to wear very, very long blonde hair?
I don't know. I don't know.
You call yourself Dog the Bounty
But also dobbing in people who are living quite legally, but I mean,
they're
undocumented.
Not. They're kind of not.
Yeah, but do you know what happens if all the undocumented workers leave the United States of America?
I have no idea.
So 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 workers in America are undocumented. They pick all the crops. They've already gone into hiding, and they are already saying that they're not going to go and pick the crops, and all the crops are dying in the fields. So
Well,
be careful what you wish for.
Bill, I didn't wish for any of this.
No, I'm not saying to you.
I just wanted a nice, quiet, peaceful life.
It's never going to
with
happen.
a few laughs. No, it's never going to happen, is it?
Daily
Right.
Express
Yeah.
shows a wonderful photograph
I've lost
again
it now.
of an Auschwitz survivor, Stanislav Zelowski,
Yes.
95 years old. This is
Bless
the moment
him.
when we recall the depths to which humanity can sink when evil is allowed to flourish, ignored for too long by the world. King Charles at Auschwitz. He said that.
Yes, he
King
did.
Charles said that. So that's extraordinary. The Daily Telegraph. Non-crime hate laws to be expanded.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is the story you were talking about. Claims of two-tier policing would be seen as extremist under guidance in
How do you
leaked
read that?
report.
I can't read any of this. I've got my glasses on. I can't read.
Well, I can't read the rest of it.
Oh, thank God,
But
because I thought that was
I
superhuman
I probably
powers.
could.
No,
but,
don't, because it'll really depress me. No, forget it. I can't. I can do the headline and the subhead. That's it.
Yeah. So that's interesting. These new non-crime hate laws are set to be expanded, so you won't be able to say two-tier policing.
This is disgraceful. I'm
It is.
sorry. It's absolutely disgraceful. And it goes full circle back to why people don't have any faith in the politicians. If you think it's two-tier, then you say, I'm sorry.
I think it is,
I
yeah.
think it's two-tier. How can you, jail this person for doing whatever it is? Let's get it specific. I don't want to be hauled off by the police, thank you. But, how can you jail this person and then somebody else does something which you think is heinous and they walk out of court? You go, well, I think that's two-tier. No, you've just committed a crime. Sorry.
know.
What, for an opinion? It's
I
only
know.
an opinion.
And I don't know what a non-crime hate law actually. What are the police doing getting involved in non-crime?
It's
non-crime.
What's the name of that? Alison Pearson.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Oh,
that.
yeah.
That's the epitome of what could happen. And she only survived that because she's Alison Pearson.
And she had the backing of the newspapers,
and the media said, oh, we're not having this, one of our own. It's outrageous.
Middle-class ladies are our worst shoplifters. Also front page of the Telegraph.
Who's that? All right, I'll take
The nib at the bottom, next to the Mac cartoon.
All right. I'm struggling here. Go on. Middle-class ladies are our worst shoplifters. Yes.
Lifters, apparently.
Lifters.
This is
Wow.
what they're saying. And
Fantastic.
Wes Streeting has scrapped NHS female health targets.
Not worth it. Too much trouble because they're
Women are
women.
just women.
They're women.
Just women.
Who cares?
Who cares? They're just women.
Just women.
They've got too many rights as it is.
Yeah, I mean, it all went wrong when they got the vote.
That's
It's obvious.
That's
It's
when it all
obvious.
went wrong.
That's where.
That's where
That's
it
where.
all went
Stay in
wrong.
the kitchen. Know your place. That's the end of it, obviously.
Yeah.
So we can understand why he's doing that. Makes perfect sense. Said nobody ever. Right, there we go.
So yeah, scrapping NHS female health targets. I can't imagine that would be any
Why?
good for anybody.
Well,
Why?
it's
Well, if there isn't a
they're
target,
women.
then
They're tough. I suppose his thinking is they're women. They're tough. They'll bounce back.
Yeah, they'll be all
They'll
right.
be fine.
But also,
what are you worried about? You're making such a fuss.
it's if there isn't a
50%.
target, they can't miss it, can they?
That's
they can't
it.
get it
no.
wrong. They
So
can't-
everything's improved.
they can't miss the
See,
target.
that's improving the NHS because you've got no target.
Couple of stories that are extra that you've found. I like this one because we haven't got much time, so
No, we have
I'm
not.
gonna pick and choose.
All right, then.
A cat left on a plane
Yeah.
ends up taking 3 flights.
I love this. It's an 8-year-old cat called Mittens.
Right.
Oh, see what they did there. Lost a little bit of weight. 3 trips in 24 hours. She went from Melbourne before mistakenly being taken back to New Zealand. And if you don't know, these are very, very far apart. It's not like Croydon and Penge.
They are.
So the family was moving from New Zealand to Australia. It all went horribly wrong. They realised their cat... This is Home Alone. All that's missing is Macaulay Culkin. Their cat's been left on the plane. It was flown back home. 8-year-old Maine Coon cat, which are huge.
They're massive. How
They
do you
are,
forget
like-
a Maine Coon?
Not easily, was especially trying to lift it, give yourself a hernia. It was booked on a one-way trip from Christchurch, New Zealand, where I used to have relatives, to Melbourne, Australia, where I also had relatives. On the 13th of January, they touched down in Melbourne, meant to be unloaded from the cargo hold. 3 hours of waiting. The owner, Margot Nice, said, no sign of her, right?
Oh, I thought they had the cat in the plane with them. That would be unforgivable, wouldn't
Well,
it?
that is full Macaulay
okay.
Culkin.
So the plane then had he had to fly another 3 times before he got home.
Little guy. Well, big
Russ,
guy. Yes.
Thank
Is that
you.
it? My pleasure.
That is it. Thank you
Wow.
very much indeed, Russ Kane, writer, broadcaster and celebrant.
Thank you.
Come back soon.
I'd love to.
Right, coming up in the next hour, it is Over to You on a day when we remember the worst of humanity created by a dictatorship. Gen Z have declared in a survey that they'd rather have a dictator than democracy. So what does that tell us about the future, A, of democracy, or B, where Gen Z is? Now, those are people aged between 13 and 27. And they're saying, look, either that or the military can run the country. That would be preferable to democracy. Now, it's easy to see that democracy it's the best of the worst, really, but it is not perfect, and it has let us down recently. So have you stopped voting as well? And why? And what would you say to young people about losing democracy? 0344 499 1000. And there we go.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning to you. It's great to have your company, and we're talking this morning about democracy and the future of democracy. And the reason I'm having this conversation, although we began it on the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz by Russian troops, which of course was a creation of a dictatorship. And we're all going, no, that could never happen again. That could never happen again. But I tell you what, a people who refuse to learn from history are destined to repeat it. And we look at a new survey that reveals that most young Britons, Generation Z, who are between the ages of 13 and 27. I always need to know what these generations mean. I'm never quite sure. Z, they want Britain to be ruled by a dictator. This is 52% of those surveyed. Now, it was a survey of 3,000, which I've been looking at surveys all my life, and that's a decent number, right? It is a decent number. But even if it wasn't a decent number, we're looking at half, more than half of those questioned saying they would prefer a dictator. In fact, they think that politics and parliament and the slow process, I mean, democracy is a very slow process. You have to go through lots of checks and balances. You have to go through various levels of the House. We've seen it before, haven't we? When it goes to the Commons, a law goes to the Commons, we all think, well, just approve it. It's a decent law. But then it gets looked at by lawyers, and then it goes to the Lords, and then it goes back to the Commons. We saw this with the Rwanda situation. Right, and so it just went on and on and on and on and on. That's democracy. It's the checks and balances that take so long to see anything actually be done. And I understand why people find that frustrating. I find it frustrating as well. But what's the alternative? The alternative is somebody who just says that's the way it's going to be, and it is. Right? No checks and balances, no scrutiny on laws. And that works brilliantly if that falls in your favour. But it doesn't work brilliantly if for some reason you don't fall into that category. And it just depends on, people always say, well, you know, why would we ever have another Hitler? Or what? People love power. We're looking at Vladimir Putin at the moment, and he is the supreme leader. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, his people are starving to death, and they don't get a say. They're told how to have their hair cut. The men have got, I think, half a dozen haircuts they can choose from. So it doesn't take much to see that a dictator can veer in a direction that you may not agree with, and by then it's too late. Of course, it's too late. But look, I want to know why you think Gen Z is saying this. A third of those questioned as well thought that Britain would be better if the army was in charge. A military control of the country. And this is a generation that went through COVID. So I'm surprised, because we had all our liberties taken away from us during that period of time, right? All of them. And terrifyingly, we all went along with it. And this is what I mean. We were scared into agreeing to these loss of liberties. We had police officers stopping people from sitting on a bench and having a cup of coffee, fining people. And we went along with it because we were scared. So I don't think it is too ridiculous to assume that if we were scared again by something, I don't know what, that we would fall right behind this kind of behaviour. And I did it like you did it, right? I don't think I'd do it again, because I was so horrified at how easily I gave up everything, literally everything. And for the greater good, or whatever that was, whatever that nightmare was that we went through. It showed me something, a reflection in the mirror I wasn't very happy with, because I always thought that I would fight that kind of behaviour, that ultimate control, that dictatorship. And I didn't. I'm not proud of myself. But look how easy it was to do it. And they couldn't have achieved that if we hadn't complied. But we all did. We were like, you know. And yeah, we were scared. But it doesn't take much, does it? I mean, we could be scared again. And at the moment, actually, we're being taught to be scared of other people. We're being taught to be scared of disabled people ripping off the state, faking illness. And we're being taught to be scared of legal migration. And we're being taught to be horrified and annoyed and angry and scared of unemployed people taking all our money. So it doesn't take much. It really doesn't take much. And there is evidence to back up what I'm saying very short time ago when we all caved in to this kind of behaviour. So I understand in a way why young people are frustrated by politics at the moment. I think we're all frustrated by politics at the moment. I think we all are. Why bother voting? I hear it every time there's an election. I don't vote. Why not? Why should I? What's the point? Same old idiots get in every time. And so I'm not surprised that Gen Z don't want to vote, aren't engaged, and don't trust democracy because they see it as being really slow and really cumbersome. And anyway, why should they be part of society when they stand to gain nothing from being good members of that society, right? They can't get a hospital appointment, probably not that bothered because they're young and healthy, but they're looking at their pension age being increased to 72 years old. They're looking at all the money they earn being spent on rent. They can't buy a house. Practically impossible to buy a house, buy a flat. So why should they be engaged in a process that benefits them? Not in the least. But how do we persuade young people that if they don't vote, that will be the death of democracy? I don't know. I don't know. Give me a call. Got loads of text messages come through. Would love a few more calls. Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. You can also message. I will read as many as I can. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Is democracy done? I mean, democracies rise and fall, right? All sorts of things. But voter fatigue? Are you somebody who doesn't vote? Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. And do you understand why young people are just not interested in being part of a society that they gain nothing from being law-abiding, tax-paying? What do they gain from it? No wonder they're all going off ill. No wonder they're not working. Why would they? I kind of get it. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Carol has said, I don't think so-called Gen Z understood the question. Maybe it should be explained to them fully. But that's the problem, Carol. If they don't know what a dictatorship actually can be and is, that's even more scary. Let's go to Simon, who's in Reading. Simon, good morning to you. Are you concerned about this survey that's been done?
Not overly. I don't know the full terms of the survey, but I don't think that some of the right questions were asked. I just wanted to cover a couple of things. You know, firstly, do we have a democracy? When you look at what goes on in government at the moment and Parliament, most of the deciding bodies are not MPs. They're quangos, you know, for example, Bank of England, the Supreme Court. So decision making is left to lawyers and bankers, not to MPs. So do we truly have a democracy? We vote people in, and yet they have to answer to people who are unelected. You know, that's the first.
But aren't you glad the judiciary isn't part of government, though?
The judiciary is part of government, isn't it? Because it's a Supreme Court, an unelected body that everyone turns.
Yes, but they're not
to
part
make
of.
decisions.
What I'm saying is that they're not controlled by government. That Supreme Court can hold the government to account. I think that's a good thing.
Yes, but they also apply the rules that perhaps our country don't want. For example,
What, like laws?
Yeah, so for example, we got the human rights laws. Let's talk about that. The international laws. We don't have our own. We have to go to an international body that we have to agree with, and we can't say anything.
And these, by the way, the Human Rights Act was put together after the atrocities of what happened under a dictatorship in Germany. So they're not bad. The Human Rights Act is very small, and actually it should be global.
That original Human Rights Act was about the power of the people against decisions of the state. Now it's about the power of an individual against against other people.
No, it's about human rights. It's about the basic. It was decided that there should be a list of things that were the basic rights of every human being on this planet. The right to freedom of religion, the right to not to be enslaved, the right to family life, the rights to all of those things, all those rights that were taken away from the Jews and the communists and the intellectuals and all of those. So I really struggle with somebody who's against human rights, because I think they're a good thing.
Yes, but
the right not to be incarcerated without a fair trial, the right not to be sent to a concentration camp, basically, not to be interned.
But now you have the rights of a minority against a majority of people, not against the state. So in effect, if you pick any touchy subject, transgender, anything like that, any touchy subject, it's all about the rights of a minority of people against the rights of the majority of the people, not against the state. Yeah, so it's changed slightly. That's what I'm saying.
No, I see. It is actually about the rights of the individual, but it has been spun to make it look as though it's us against them, because they want it to be us against them. Because while we're bitching and fighting with the tiny percentage of trans people in this country, we're not paying attention to what governments are getting up to. It is 0.0 something. It is tiny. 60,000 in the entire nation.
Yes, I know.
And it's about the rights of the individual. Your rights how have your rights been affected?
Right. So if you follow that through then very briefly, and you took DEI as a subject matter, so the rights of the individual starts overpowering the rights of the majority.
But how do they?
Let's take women, for example. Okay, we've got men in women's sports. You've got, men boxers, men runners, men swimmers winning all the competitions, and some people think that's right, and some people have brought it in as policy.
Well, it's clearly not right, and you think you'll find that policy is changing, but that's not about the fact that. Hang on, that's not about the fact they are trans women. That's about the fact that they are trans women who've gone through male puberty and are stealing from women in sport. That's entirely different, and that is being changed now because the unfairness of it has been seen, right? So even the international bodies now are going, no, we have to reframe that.
We're going slightly off topic, but the point I'm making is that the minority of people are acting against the majority of people, not against the state, and that's what human rights was about originally.
But they're not acting against. I don't see how they're acting against your rights unless you are a female Olympian.
A woman, yes, exactly. You've made my point for me. So every woman in Great Britain, who's got a bloke walking into their toilets, is that's been allowed by policy or law. That is.
What do you think they're doing in those toilets?
Well, standing up somewhere, I suspect. But
well,
anyway,
I think. Hang on a second. Hang on. Can we just behave? Simon, because we are talking about people who have potentially also gone through quite traumatic gender reassignment surgery, and they won't be standing up, as well you know, and you said that to be rude. So let's not be rude, especially against people who are not here to defend themselves. But I don't see how that affects the majority. We are talking about 60,000 people in this entire country. How does that affect the majority of toilets even? It doesn't.
So from your argument then, I know we're going bang off the topic here, but from that argument about like the human right aspect, from that argument then, are you saying that you don't mind if somebody who is transgender, who you know nothing about, but you don't know what their situation is in terms of...
Are you saying that people who are gender fluid are rapists? Are all rapists? Because there are more men rapists than trans women rapists.
No. Look, the point is that are you saying that you're quite happy as a woman to have somebody who says they're transgender, who may not have done anything except put a dress on, come into your private space? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Because wearing a dress doesn't make you a rapist, right? Or does it? In your view?
Okay.
Because gay men, before, you know, you've probably, I hate to mention this, Simon, but in the toilets that you go to, there's probably gay men in there. Are you worried about them raping you? Are you? I'm just asking you a question. Are you worried about gay men being rapists? Because 50 years ago, 40 years ago, they were described in the same way as you're describing transgender women.
So, all right. Okay then. So let's take the transgender bloke who was put in a women's prison up in Scotland then.
Wrong.
And the offence.
Completely wrong, because the offence was rape. That was completely wrong.
Hold on. He's a woman.
Yes, he's a woman with a no, because you're not understanding what I'm saying. The laws that you were so concerned about have already been changed, right? He was put into a female prison. He or she was a rapist. He or she still had a penis with which to rape vulnerable women in a prison. That was a mistake. He or she, I don't know which. I'm only saying that because I'm not sure what gender they identify as at the moment. It seemed ridiculous, and that person was moved. Those laws have already come into effect. You talk about men in women's sport. Those rules are already being changed because, yes, you try to do what you think is the woke thing. It turns out to be the wrong thing, and then it all goes back the other way. But do I mind a man in a dress coming into the toilets? No. Do I mind putting a boy into the male toilets and 5 priests going in there? Yeah, because they're more likely to rape him than a trans.
So by that...
Yes or no?
No, not really.
Not by fact. No. You tell me how many trans women, not those rapists who then say they're women in order to get an easy ride, are rapists compared to Catholic priests.
There's the rub, though.
Compared to Catholic priests.
Where do you say? Where do you?
You know the Catholic priests.
Woman is a woman.
You know the Catholic priests rape a lot of boys and children. You know that, right?
That's wrong. Yes. Yeah. But what I'm saying to you is
documented fact.
The rub is where do you put that? Okay, where does that become acceptable? Now, personally...
What, raping children? It never becomes acceptable.
No. Where does the trans argument become acceptable? When does a trans male, let's say a male transitioning to be a female, when does that actually become protected rights, okay, that they are a female, therefore they can use women's spaces? When does that happen? Does it happen when they put the dress on? Does it happen when they say, oh, I fancy being a woman? Does it happen when they say, okay, I'm going to go through the whole suite of change, okay, and I'm now a woman?
Have you ever met a trans woman?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Yeah. And did that trans woman say to you? Oh my God, Simon, did that trans woman say to you?
What point do you say in law that person is now a woman? At what stage do you say that a person is a woman? Because it's very difficult to do, isn't it? Because it's either male or female, okay, or it's a transgender man moving to become a woman and calling himself a woman.
You know there are more transgender men than there are transgender women, don't you? So you're probably sharing your toilets with women who are now men. That doesn't worry you?
Yes, but the obvious problem, okay, is a bit about the I suppose what you call the male dominant side of the relationship between male and female sharing the same space. I suppose that's what you would say would be one of the considerations, and that's perhaps why women feel threatened in their own spaces. Yeah.
But I don't understand.
I'm not trying to be awkward or anything like this. All I'm saying to you is that you know we've gone completely off topic because we're all saying
the human rights thing. Yeah, but look,
the human rights and all this other stuff.
Things change. Right, the world changes. Yeah. Things change. Gay people now have the same rights as we have. You would agree that's the right thing to do, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But for a long time in history, people were saying they shouldn't be able to walk into a bathroom because they're a threat. They're going to rape children. They're going to rape little boys. That's what gay men, particularly, were considered to be dirty, filthy paedophiles, right? History has proved that not to be the case, okay? And I suspect that the same thing will happen with the trans community. They are where the gay community was a few decades ago. And yes, there'll always be a question of when do you accept somebody is a woman. But I happen to know that from speaking to trans women that have gone from male to female, that they wouldn't have chosen that lightly. They said, my whole life got thrown up. I lost my job. I lost my family. I didn't do this just so I could cause trouble for anybody. Some of them will say I had body dysmorphia. Some of them say it came from a mental health issue. Well, they're very honest about why they've transitioned. So I think we cut them some slack, and that's what the Human Rights Act is about. It is not about them overtaking our spaces. It's about the right of the individual to be who they believe that they are. Absolutely. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to or haven't done is give them all the rights of other people, because it takes us time to do that.
Absolutely, and the point I was trying to make, or trying to make, let's say, or failing to try and make, was that as soon as this subject, and it's probably completely wrong subject for me to highlight, really, because it's not fair on a lot of people, but as soon as the subject hits the press, okay, what happens is everyone jumps on the bandwagon and demands rights straight away. And that's why we got into that situation.
But it doesn't mean they get them.
So instead, well, they
don't.
It happened in a lot of cases. You know, we had.
Yes, but they haven't got them.
We had people that were clearly sort of, let's say in sport, very muscular, unfair advantage. Yeah, let's
completely,
say
and that has now been reversed.
But that was brought in, wasn't it?
It was, but it's been reversed. We learn.
I know that.
We're a species.
The point I'm making is that it was originally about the minority against the majority of people, not against the state, which is what the original human rights was about.
How are they against the majority? That's what I don't understand.
Because it's about the majority of the people. So effectively, let's say this, okay, I want to become a woman, I want to use your toilet, you're a woman, and I don't care, I'm going to use it, and I'm going to have the law to make me use it, right, straight away, bang. Now, the point being is it's not about the state oppressing me, yeah, it's about everyone else is going to oppress me, so I'm going to use it, that sort of thing. I know it's a poorly argumented, but the point of being is it's not the state oppressing me, okay, it's everyone else is going to oppress me. Yeah, so I demand my rights, quite rightly. If they want to demand my rights, fine, and let a decision be made.
But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't say that therefore a human right...
discussion, not just...
But we started talking about the Human Rights Act.
Supreme Court... I know, but the European Court of Human Rights, or the International Human Rights, right, will always favour the victim. That's what it's designed to do. So it doesn't matter what it is.
No, it's to favour...
The victim's rights are paramount. So
well, not unless it doesn't fit within the Human Rights Act. But it's a good thing that the Human Rights Act is there. It's a good thing. It protects
Absolutely.
you. It protects your children. It protects your
Absolutely.
family. It means you can't be incarcerated without due reason. It means that you can practice any religion or not as you choose. It is a good thing.
It leads me to my second point. About the right of freedom of speech. Okay. Now you can see now, and you've even talked about the comments today about the two-tier policing.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Being made right.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's in right. So
that's not the Human Rights Act. That's the government. And the judiciary, I'm telling you, will be the ones that fight it. That independent judiciary will be the ones that fight it. That's why we need an independent judiciary that holds the government to task.
So did you agree then? So did you agree at the time when the riots were occurring that people putting stupid posts up that weren't actually inflammatory or anything like that were being hauled in and questioned by the police?
No, because I believe that providing you don't incite to riot or incite to hatred, then you can say what you like. But my understanding is those people who got sent down were inciting to violence or hatred. In other words, there was one woman who said, go and set fire to a mosque, and then went, oh, I didn't mean it. That's inciting to violence. That breaks the law. So, yeah, I do agree with her being well, I don't know whether locked up was the right thing, but said definitely that there should be some recourse to that. And other people who were locked up, if you look at what they actually said, they were inciting hatred. And that's wrong.
I appreciate that.
Yeah?
But not everybody was. And they
but
were
anybody, I don't...
arrested and all those things.
I don't know about
so
everybody.
Right, freedom of speech was getting...
No. We have a freedom of... I don't like this erosion in terms of you can't say two-tier policing, because I think that is rubbish. That's not inciting to violence. That's not inciting to hatred. But I would...
But they're bringing it in.
Yeah, I know, but it'll be the Human Rights Act, oddly, and the European Court and the judiciary that is independent of government that defends your rights, not government. Government don't give a whistling floo-fla for your rights, right? They will take them away like that because they love doing that. It's the rest of the people around us. It's the European Court. It's all of those that everybody's been taught to hate. They're the ones that will stand up and go, no, I'm sorry, that's too far.
But then you see, so we've now got a government now that are now curtailing the rights of people to have free speech.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, why wouldn't they? Because why wouldn't they if they can get away with it?
But why are they even bring that in if they know it's fundamentally against the Human Rights Act?
Because Trump's brought in a load of stuff that he knows is fundamentally against the Constitution. He'll fight it. Some court will tell him it's absolute rubbish and he can't do it, and then it'll go back to normal. But we need these independent bodies. We need these external bodies like the Human Rights Act, like the International Court of Human Rights, because governments will try to overstep their authority. They love it. Particularly a Labour government throughout history. They've always tried to take away rights and tried to silence people and tried to do things like that. We need these things that we think we don't need to protect us from the people we think have got our best interests at heart, and they haven't.
And this brings me on to perhaps the final point. Well, I know we've gone around a massive merry-go-round here, but the final point is that, in answer to your question about that survey, firstly, I don't think the people in that particular generation, Gen Z, have had the benefit of what I would call a good leader.
True.
In charge of the country.
Yeah, because they're born after even Blair. Won't you? Liar.
Yeah, and the Second World War is, goes fading into the distance.
I agree.
They don't accept, they don't perhaps appreciate the leadership of some people like Churchill, etc. During that period, yeah.
And I also do think that their social contract isn't there. That they're thinking, well, why should I be part of a democracy? It doesn't do me any good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But what it is crying out for, and I'll go back to make it recent. Boris Johnson came in, massive landslide majority, on the basis that we're going to come out of Europe, whether you like it or not, whether either side of the argument you're on. Yeah. First thing he should have done, okay, we're coming out of Europe, we're now on our own. Okay, what are we going to do? I know, let's get a load of money coming into the country through business. How are we going to do that? Well, let's cut a few business rates and then get some people actually working over here to build our growth. What do he do? No, doesn't do it at all. Sold us down the river.
Yeah.
We get left floundering around for like 5 or 6 years with no further forward. Then we got Starmer, who promises a load of things, lied throughout all that, brings in completely the opposite of what he said, and all the scandals and all this sort of stuff that gets mixed up with it. The first thing they do when they come in the government is go and get a load of clothes that someone else has brought them.
Yeah, and then stuff the old people. Do you know what, Simon? I completely agree with absolutely with all of that. They've let us down, and these young people just don't see the point of it.
And whether you like Farage or not, or whether in the next 4 years someone else will come along that will outshine him, he is probably one has said what he would do, and appears to be extremely sincere about it.
They all do, though.
Not only him.
They all do.
I know, not only him, but he's the only one I can see doing it. And that's the rub we got. And someone said earlier on in your show, it was, you got it's like a law of diminishing
returns. So that was me, yeah, with democracy.
It's worse and worse every time, and what the youngsters are crying out for is somebody who's going to lead our country.
Look, if it takes reform for 4 years to re-engage young people, it may be a sacrifice that we've got to make. People have got to believe that voting changes something, and so far it doesn't. Simon, that was great. I enjoyed that. I've got to go to a break though. Thank you, Simon. Do call again. Yeah, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, good morning. It's good to have your company. We're talking this morning about asking a question if Gen Z has truly given up on democracy. And actually, we're kind of in agreement as to why they would, because we're all hanging on to the voting system by our fingertips, trying to have faith in this thing called democracy, whilst government after government turn out to be a bunch of self-serving duds. right? So I get it. I get why, but how do we re-engage them in some kind of political discourse? How do we do that? Carol has called from Manchester. Hello, Carol. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Enjoyed the debate between yourself and Simon.
Richard, that was good. I enjoyed that. I love it when you can have a debate and not fall out.
And it's great to have a great debate, and we have different views and everything.
And you don't fall out, right? Richard will call again. It'll be absolutely
and that's
fine.
how it should be.
Exactly.
And that is what the problem is. That's where it comes from. In Parliament, having debates, having strength, But the thing is, what I think is, over the years, is like we have no pride in our country. Let's just start from that. Let's just take that point with it. We have no pride with Great Britain. There's no pride at all. It's not taught. It's not given anything. We have no pride with our soldiers, like all with it. We have no pride with our police. We have nothing with it. And we're teaching our kids, and I don't know where it comes from, and it should come from the higher people.
Carol? Oh, we dropped Carol. Right, we'll go back to Carol in just a moment. Ali, in the meantime, is in West Yorkshire. And you are Gen Z, young man.
Yeah, hi, I am. Yeah, I'm 26.
26, okay. I understand you now because my son's 27, so I get who you are now.
Yeah.
So what is going on with Gen Z in losing faith, if you like, in democracy?
Well, I wouldn't say losing faith with democracy, like the idea of like freedom for all vote and everything. It's the politicians, really. That they're all just second-rate politicians, and they're all corrupt, and they don't care about the people, they don't care about us or anyone really.
Yeah,
that's the real anger.
I feel that, because we all feel that. Right, I think we all, whatever age you are, we feel that. But is it shocking to you that this survey, and it was a decent number, of people of your age group are saying a dictatorship would be better?
Yeah, it is a little bit shocking, but I'm not surprised. I do think, though, the country, we should have a strong leader, like quite somebody that can get stuff done and stuff like that.
But still within the parliamentary system?
To be honest, not the current parliament. I think the current parliament's a joke, to be honest.
So you would want that's
what I feel.
A strong leader outside of being able to vote for them or hold them to account?
I think we should be able to vote for who we want as the leader, prime minister. Like what have in America, they can vote for the president, they can vote for their MP and stuff.
Right, but they would still be part of a legal parliamentary process. Like Trump is. I mean, he's still part.
I'm quite a left-wing liberal person, so I wouldn't want Trump. But I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I just think the current politicians, nobody likes them. Frankly, people my age, nobody likes them really.
It's true. They are self-serving, and I totally understand why young people like you and my son are just going, what's in it for me if I'm if I'm going to work all my life and pay taxes? I'm not going to retire till I'm 72, 73. I'm not going to get a good NHS, and I don't get the opportunity to buy property. So I kind of get that. I do understand that. It's tough being you, isn't it? Being young.
Yeah. Well, another thing, they say there's no opportunity, no money, this and that.
Yeah.
But yet they all have money for the royal family. They have all the wealth, all the palaces and private jets, and I think they should contribute more into the.
Well, they do pay tax. They do pay tax.
Well, no, the sponge off the taxpayer. That's what they do.
It's not as much as you think it is.
Yeah,
and most of that money goes into the royal palaces because they belong to us.
No, they don't belong to us. They belong
do.
to them. We can't just rock up there saying, "Oh, we want to live there." They don't belong to us. That's total.
Well, no, we can't do that.
Nonsense.
But they do. They're part of the estate of that we have to upkeep them.
No,
because they belong to the country.
No, I'm sorry. I don't buy that. No, they don't. They think they're above us, and we basically have. They have all the wealth in the country, frankly, and nobody.
No, they don't. They don't.
Yeah,
there are billionaires and oligarchs that do. And too many people have got. Too few people have got too much of our money in this country. But you wait and see. It's not so much the royal family. It's all those business people who pretend that they're interested in us and then don't pay tax. But listen, Ali, great to talk to you. I've got to go because I have to take a break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, good morning. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you. Just going to read out a few messages. Sam has said, hi Petrie, I can't help but wonder if we are to blame for some of this. How often do the younglings hear, well, it doesn't matter who gets in, they're all the same? Yeah, it's a good point. Of course, we're all questioning democracy and they see as well the turnout to elections being woefully low. So nobody gets the government they want, really, at the end of the day, because it's nobody can be bothered. CBA, isn't it? So, Sam, thank you for that. Hi, this is from Claire. It says, you're talking about Gen Z. In Glasgow, Gen Z, we were voted the most friendly and the most violent city in the same year. They are not stupid. They see what does not get done by liars, so feel that stuff might get done by the military, etc. I don't blame them. I blame the democratically elected governments for letting us all down. Just a thought, and I vote, and I always will. And I totally agree with that as well. Hang on, here we go. There's another one here from Jack. Democracy faces significant threats in numerous regions globally. The emergence of authoritarian regimes, the decline of civil liberties, the spread of disinformation and increasing political division all play a role in this deterioration. Completely agree with that. Many democratic nations encounter internal challenges such as the subversion of electoral integrity, assaults on the judicial system and limitations on the freedom of the press. These factors can diminish public confidence in democratic institutions and pave the way for more autocratic forms of governance. And that's from Jack in Manchester. Right, I have to take another break, believe it or not, because I took so long in the first half an hour I forgot a break. So got to squeeze another one in. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you for the next 10 minutes or so. Carol, we wanted you to finish off your point.
Hi, yeah, you know, like with it, I know we got cut off or whatever, but the point is at the end of the day, us adults, right, need to sort ourselves out first. We can't keep, you know, like, our children are confused. They're so confused of what's been going on, you know, like how we're bringing them up and it's this and it's that and whatever. I'm trying to do it in a quick way. And the thing is like the politicians, we need to, something's happening to us. Something's happened to, we need to put them in account. We don't do it. We don't challenge them. We don't look upon it. We don't, you know, like they behave whatever they want. Like I said, I see them on a Wednesday every week.
Just slagging each other off. They don't. There's no debate. Yeah, they are. They are.
They behave. Have you seen them over the last few months? They laugh at each other. They and it fumes.
It's pathetic.
Us.
Yeah.
And what do? What do we? We have to work. We have to wait 4 years, or we have to
5
wait.
now.
You know, like,
yeah.
And like I said to you a good while ago, you know, like it's coming up to May, and now it's God knows what's going on in May. Vote them out. That's what we have to. We only have that stick. Vote them out. And it's very hard for us as parents, as ordinary people, ordinary workers or whatever. We have that one thing. And even though we may not be able to do that in May, it's shocking.
With the local council elections, yeah, because they're trying to stop millions from having that vote in May.
I've never heard of it in my life.
I know, it is, because they want to redraw the boundaries or something. It's an absolute load of absolute,
and it is. And it is. And what we need to do, everybody needs to vote. We should vote. Like, even if you're not sure who to vote, then, like, destroy your paper or whatever, do something.
Because they are counted. If it's a destroyed ballot, they are counted.
Exactly.
And that is important. So go out and destroy your ballot if you don't know who to vote for.
Exactly. But with what's happened on this occasion with Labour, like, people might not understand. And a lot of people, I do get irritated because I know more about, political things than people don't. And maybe we need to teach that in school. Maybe we need to teach children, because it's so important, like, these kind of decisions and that we need to teach our children how to, how to get a vote, how to get a voice or whatever.
And teach them critical thinking. That is the most important thing, to not just accept what you're told, but to think about what you're being told and who's telling it to you. Because critical thinking is critical. I mean, it is absolutely vital. And I totally agree with you that we can see why there's a loss of faith in democracy, but this is why they like to keep us poor. They like to keep us angry at each other. It's those immigrants, it's those disabled people, it's those unemployed people. If we're arguing amongst ourselves, we're not holding them to account.
Exactly, and Great Britain's going like that. We've got the Scottish, we've got the Irish. I love my country. My country is Great Britain, the Scottish, the Irish.
I agree.
Everybody, all of us, not just...
It's divide and rule. It's always been divide and rule, or divide and conquer. And we are falling, and we are falling into the trap. And I say that every time there's a story about, some disabled person who isn't disabled and who's faking it, because that is there to divide us, to make us look at disabled people and treat them like they're other, to look at legal migrants and treat them like they're stealing our jobs. And that's what, if we're busy doing that, we're not holding them to account, and that is the whole point of it. So I agree with everything you said there, Carol. Thank you very much indeed. Got to go because I just want to squeeze John in before the end of the programme. John in West Yorkshire, good morning.
Good morning, Petrie. 27-year-olds were 4 at the start of the War on Terror.
That's true, yeah.
And so they can't remember a time when society was relaxed and orderly. And I think that's maybe something they're craving, that they think they'd get with a dictator.
Gosh.
And because they've seen dictators in other countries, they've seen it from the outside, but they don't understand what it's like from the inside.
I mean, you ask the North Korean people... or women in Afghanistan, or men in Afghanistan. The Taliban is a dictatorship. There's no question. And you ask those people if they would rather live in a democracy. And providing they were allowed to answer that question without having their heads cut off, they would say that they don't want to live under the totalitarian rule that they're under. And John, the people who fought and died to defeat fascism, the people who fought and survived to defeat fascism, what would they make of the world today?
Oh, they probably would be speechless.
Because I think the problem is, John, that, like you're saying, it's that they've never lived through particularly trying times. Might be economically trying, might be politically a bit annoying, but like you said, the IRA, I'm not sure if that's not a dictatorship thing, but they've never lived, in London particularly, you were always concerned that there might be a bomb somewhere, a bomb threat or a bomb somewhere. So, you were on your uppers. You were always keenly aware. Those who had grandparents or parents that were part of the war effort in the Second World War, we were still connected to that generation. To grandparents and parents. Well, now they're not connected to that anymore. They've never known. Even the Falklands War, right? That was in the 80s. The fact that they were talking about a call-up procedure in the 80s for the Falklands War, if that expanded. They've never lived under that fear, and I think that makes people complacent.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen it.
Oh yeah.
And this is why it really concerned me today of all days, in the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, that young people are saying they'd prefer either a military control or a dictatorship.
Yeah. And every ancient Greek democracy
has collapsed.
Would end with them electing a dictator, because they'd have too much legal laws and
they control. Yes, they start to then control the courts. They control law. They control everything. The media.